Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Tasha.
I'm
Hi,
having a meat
Brenda.
problem here. Hold on.
Oh, hi.
So Jesse, it's Miranda. I just talked to Chris Perret, and he's not going to make it tonight. And
Okay.
so I think aside from, and I haven't heard from Brian, but
Okay.
maybe waiting for Brian, but you do have quorum.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, I mean, let's just get going. Amanda, did you hear? I see you're on. Did you hear about having a meeting next week?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Is that going to work for you?
Yes, yes. And spoke with Miranda, and yeah. I just hope that I don't want that meeting to be another week from there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
And Amanda was
Yeah.
just going to join to listen. We talked when we talked earlier. She was still just going to log in just to,
Okay.
just briefly introduce that item.
Yeah, it sounds like just to give it time, just for the length of the discussion, and then we can get more public feedback and more people to hop on and
sure.
give you more support there because it's pretty chock-a-block tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just here to
And then
listen, and
hopefully
thank you for
everyone.
that. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming. And then I guess, yeah, just if there's anything that you would like any board members to look up in the meantime, I've just said to read the permitting recommendation letter and to be familiar with the documents and regulations. But
Yes.
I shared your email with Sarah and Amanda as well, just so you know.
okay. All right. Cool. Well, if we've got quorum, let's just kick it off and get going. It looks like we've got Atashna,
Yeah. Yes.
Brian. Is Brian here? No, not yet. We've got Chris. No, yet, not yet. Oh, he's not coming. We've got Eric. Will you hear us, Eric? Okay. And John.
Yep.
And me, Jesse. Was there any word on the minutes from last meeting, or are we still tracking those down? Did you receive any, Miranda?
I know. I unmuted. I was like, well, maybe let me look first. Would Daniel have been the one to do them?
Yeah, I think he was there last meeting.
All right.
I don't think I saw them.
I still ask for him to turn them in, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see them. So you might just need to vote on them next go around.
Okay. Public comment. Well, if anyone does have anything to chip in as we go through the meeting, please do. We like to just keep it kind of informal and keep the conversation going.
I'll just introduce myself briefly, since I'm a new face, and thank you, Jesse, for sending me the invite. I'd love to be involved, and so I'm here sitting in on this one and getting the lay of the land.
Who are you and what's your background?
Yeah, my name is Sam Ovett. I live over on Bonanza Drive, Ridge Road area, and my wife and I, we own a house over here. And then I have a background in, I run a business that's fully remote. But as far as the background in this space, I have a degree in environmental science and have been involved in professional sports of different kind, and am just really involved in different mountain activities like climbing and skiing and stuff of that nature. And we bought a house here not this past June, but the previous June, and I just wanted to be involved and be part of the community. So I am here to show up and be part of the community. And
So you've been in this area for about a year and a half?
Yeah, about a year and a half, and then about 4 years total in in Colorado.
Where'd
So
you relocate from?
I originally was, well, prior to that was on the road full time working for Leave No Trace actually. And then, so I should mention that one as well, because that probably seemed relevant. Their headquarters are in Boulder. And then prior to that, Georgia and Western North Carolina. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So I mean, this was going to come later, Atashna, too. But on that note, Dan did put his resignation in a couple of days ago.
Mm.
So Daniel is not here tonight, and as he has resigned, so that does mean that we have an opening. And so we're going to need to publicly notice it. So we what we do is public notice, just an opening for a member, and I guess we're also looking for an alternate now. So we
The
can
alternate won't be formalized until the Board of Trustees adopts new bylaws.
Okay, so yeah, at the moment we'll just can advertise for the opening, but that should open the way
Okay.
for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, and Sam, I anticipate having that out by like Monday. I'm hoping for tomorrow. But I'll
Okay.
go ahead. Will you put your email in the chat so I can
Sure,
make sure to
I'd be
get that
happy to.
application over to you? That'd be great.
So yeah, how that works is like you would put in your application, and then if there's
Okay.
more applications and there are openings, then the board votes on it, and then our recommendation goes before the BOT, and you usually have to attend like a BOT meeting too, whoever the applicant
Sure.
is. Right? Is that right, Miranda?
Yeah, we like to know that it's a good fit between
Absolutely.
ProSab and you, and so the board appreciates knowing that. But
Certainly.
so it's a 3-week time frame that it's open. So if I push it out again by like Monday at the latest, it would go before the board for appointment on September 21st.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'd love to be involved, and I'd love to put an application in, and being new to the area, it's like we plan to be here for a long time, and so I'd like to be involved and be a helpful member of the community, whatever that looks like. So start there.
Well, you're here, and that's like a huge step. So thanks for hopping in tonight.
Yeah.
If there's anything else, we can just hop on to like the first item tonight, which is super exciting because we've got Nate and Maya back from the Watershed Collective, and they're going to give us just an update and outline for the Take a Hike program. This is the one we heard about a few months back. If you remember, it's like an interactive digital app thing that will provide kind of sort of self-guided tour with various informational stops along the way to discuss like things like forest ecology and stewardship and fire science and safety. So thank you so much, Nate and Maya, for coming back.
Yes, thanks for having us. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sitting in my car, so just wanted to make sure. So, yeah, I'm just going to give you a quick reminder of what we had talked about before. Jesse kind of just did that. And then Nate has a screen to share with some slides and a map, if that's doable tonight. Yeah, so Nate and I work for the Boulder Watershed Collective, and we do all sorts of different watershed related work. And one of our primary focuses right now is forest health and wildfire mitigation. So we did this Take a Hike program, one with the city of Boulder down at some trails in Shanahan Ridge, and one with Boulder County at Heil Valley Ranch, which burned during the Cowwood Fire right after we released that program. But we're really interested in making one at this higher elevation in Nederland to engage with the town of Nederland and the people who live here. And so we spent a while looking for the perfect trail, and we really wanted to highlight some of the forest treatments that have happened, but we had some difficulty finding the right trail. We were going to do the Coal Creek Trail off of East Magnolia, but they're starting a project there, and it didn't really seem great to have work happening while we did this. So we settled on Mud Lake, which is, I know, a place that a lot of people are familiar with and go to. And we decided, since there aren't any visible forest treatments as you're hiking the trails, to focus more on forest ecology. And so we're really working to integrate some, well, Nate, why don't you get into this? Because this is really Nate's baby.
Totally.
I have a quick question.
Yeah,
I
so
have a quick question for you guys. Are you interfacing at all, since you're talking about forest ecology and the trails, et cetera? Are you interfacing at all with Jill and Wild Bear?
Yes.
we are, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
okay.
Yeah, we've actually talked with Jill, and they're you know, it's a crazy summer. We actually will be hopefully meeting with her in a couple weeks actually, and walking by, and we're planning on giving Wild Bear a couple stops along this take a hike so they could provide some information to and kind of plug them as well. But yeah, they're great. And it's awesome that there's a nature center so close to the hiking trail as well. But yeah, I guess I can kind of just dive in really quick and show you all kind of what we have. So to kind of just start with the format, so basically we're going to have two options that we will be able to provide to folks. So one will be a kind of live map that you could access pretty much virtually everywhere on the internet. For some folks, I noticed along Mud Lake, I had pretty good service via Verizon. So you would be able to pull up this map, and here I will show that to you guys. Oh, sorry, one sec. To use the zoom. So if you can see this screen, hold on. So this is kind of how the format would look, and folks would be able to access this basically just on their smartphone. So you could pull this at the trailhead. We're actually talking with Boulder County to maybe have a QR code or a pamphlet that has this information. You basically kind of, and then each one of these numbered corresponding spots has different information kind of about what you were seeing with the ecology and kind of the forest. So we're kind of still working some of these out, but to kind of just run you through some of these. At most of our work, we always try to have a indigenous land acknowledgement. So that's kind of our second stop for this hike. But this goes into some of the native tribes that originally lived and are still living on the Boulder Creek watershed and kind of mostly Boulder County as well. But we also provide some information on this. And with, I should mention, with all of these maps, so we will have this version, which is available on the internet, but we will also have a PDF version that folks can have on their phone. So if they don't have service or internet access at the trail, they will still be able to see where they are near the corresponding stops. And each one of these stops will have audio that'll be contained in a Google Drive that you will be able to download ahead of time. So if folks don't want to read and they wanted to listen instead, we will have all of this information just narrated by myself and Aaron, who works in our education department. But to run through some of this, so we talk about kind of limber pine, lodgepole, and ponderosa, kind of breaking down those three important species and kind of what that mixed conifer looks like, especially at the vegetation composition and forest composition that you are at in the elevations from like 8,000 to 10,000 in Nederland. Our next site is kind of just on about that wetland riparian habitat. This is one we were going to work with Jill and Wild Bear about because it's pretty unique that you have an awesome lake right up there, and this could be something that is also a little more geared towards a younger audience. And then moving on, we have another stop. So our number 5 stop, this kind of just talks about that forest structure and composition, openings, and why having openings, source of disturbance is important in forested ecosystems. Our 6th stop will be the Great Divide. So at this stop, you can actually have a great view of the Continental Divide. So we go into and explain kind of why that's important, what that means to our watershed, especially what it means to us as kind of being really benefiting greatly from having headwaters of very major water sources in our county. And then our 7th stop kind of talks a little bit more about Douglas fir and aspen, kind of tying together those major species components. So that's that. And I think we did share our script with, I think Jessica,
Yeah.
did Erin send that over?
Yeah, she did, and I did.
Yeah,
I did
and I can
share it
share
on-
this again at the. Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is kind of, and we would love any feedback from you all and what you find kind of interesting. So this is kind of exactly what we would be going into in each of these stops. Admittedly, we're probably going to have to cut some of this down if we're going to make it into audio because it kind of snowballs a little bit. But there's a lot of really cool things, and we also will have, these documents will also be published and accessible to you guys. So if you do want to throw this out to folks who want to do kind of a deeper dive, Aaron and myself have put all of our sources in this and kind of that corresponding information about what exactly we're doing. So kind of to just now roll into our presentation, and I can breeze through this really quickly depending on what folks kind of know already, but you probably know this already, but the Boulder watershed, what we really as the collective like to do is strive to protect and restore the health and functions of our watershed and really cultivate that environmental leadership and create community resiliency and vitality. And a lot of that is done through outreach, engagement, and education. So this is kind of the nuts and bolts for this, but why we really like to kind of co-develop these hikes, and especially why we're presenting to you and wanting to share this rough draft is because we really want to get that co-develop with these hikes and really leverage that shared and local expertise and kind of help identify other things or gaps that we might be missing. And so I did just show you that. So this is kind of, again, after seeing that map, this is just a breakdown on how it will be. For each of these hikes, we like to have a kickoff, which is usually kind of similar to a webinar where we're able to dive a little deeper with folks, answer any questions beforehand, and kind of give them all the tools to go out there and enjoy it. And then we can kind of hear back more from them. As I'd mentioned, we're going to hopefully be able to put a QR code that would be accessible to bring up all of this information at the trailhead. And so this kind of goes into a little bit more of kind of those key concepts. So we've recently, Erin has joined our team and she's a wealth of knowledge with environmental education. So with each one of these stops, we really have some of these key concepts that we would like to, so these are kind of our main objectives for folks to walk away with. So as you can kind of see, a lot of it is about the structure and function of these ecosystems, but not limited to also competition, how that interacts with different species, diversity and resiliency, spatial and different time scales, kind of what that looks like on an ecosystem, and really kind of just thinking about everything as a system on some of those larger points. Yeah, so next steps after this, and I know we'll definitely be around to answer any questions if you have. I'm sure you guys have other things that are on the docket today, so we don't want to take up too much of your time, but getting some general feedback from you all would be great. It would be really nice if we had some people who were brave enough to be some beta testers for us, some guinea pigs, and helping us kind of assess that hike effectiveness. So from when we're doing our pre-post information to once we have people on the landscape hiking, kind of helping us measure how effective that was and these ways of outreach. And I think one of the most important ones that would be great and really useful having you all here is that dissemination of this, kind of what is the most effective way that we can get this hike out to Nederland residents, get people involved, have them interact with it and learn a lot more.
And I'll just add as far as timeline goes. So with the stops that Nate showed you all on the map, we were going to kind of use those as our baseline stops and kind of use that as a pilot test and try to get that all working this fall. And then we can still into this same hike integrate any stops that Wild Bear wanted to add in, or we can always keep going back and refining and adding more stops in. So maybe by next summer when their camps start, Wild Bear's camps start, we would have more stops that are more pertinent to the work that they're doing with their kids at Mud Lake.
Totally.
Awesome.
And yeah, that was great, Maya. I totally forgot to mention that. And just so everyone knows, I did drop the rough draft map into the chat. I also added some, I wouldn't say there's some layers that we really like to have on most of our maps. So there are some historical fire data there. One of the layers that I think you all would find really interesting is I found a layer that is actually all of the geologic mining history of Boulder County from like 1800 onward, and it's kind of ridiculous when you click on that layer because you can barely see the map because it's so heavy with mine shafts and mining activity. But so there are some other Easter eggs and stuff like that that we can also put in there that are kind of nice to see on the broader landscape level as well with some of those virtual maps.
I had a
Can I
couple of
ask some
comments.
questions?
Yeah, go, John.
Yeah, the first was in the beginning, you talk about a conifer system, and eventually, I was like, what about all the aspens? And you guys do introduce the aspens later, but I was thinking like a mixed forest would be, deciduous and evergreen, but it kind of, I mean, I'm not a tree guy, but it seemed like it was only focused on in the very beginning about the evergreen. And so if you could maybe at least acknowledge the deciduous part in the beginning. The second comment was in stop 4, number 4, you have one of your links, but it's to a pay link, so you'd have to buy that scientific paper. So I don't know if that's a good link to have in there because people aren't going to spend it's the scientific direct link. And third,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
you can put me down.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And you can get my info through
Put you down.
Jesse.
Sorry, you were cutting out a little bit there, John. Are you for beta tester?
Yeah, I can do beta testing if you want, and you to me through Jesse if you want.
Okay. I'll just respond to your first point, John. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
One was on point 7 that you showed me, that access point people use. That's also by the wild bear, and you might want to consider putting the QR code up at that point too, in addition to the.
Okay. Yeah, for your first point, I totally agree that looking at the whole forest is really important, and integrating the deciduous and the conifers. The reason they're separated is because when you're standing at that point, what you see in front of you is the ponderosa, the limber pine, and the lodgepole, and you don't see the aspen primarily anyway until you walk a little farther. And then at that point where there's the aspen and the Doug fir, it's like you're standing in the middle of an aspen grove. So that's why we split it up like that.
Yeah, and I should apologize. I should mention so yeah, that was kind of most of the things that brings up these stops is something that's either queued on the landscape. But yeah, we could also definitely mention that too and kind of tease that 7th spot too, to maybe get people thinking too about deciduous trees as well.
Okay, so I think we're just going to move forward with this, and then when we, please feel free to email either of us any comments if you think of something later or read through it later, but we'll just move forward with it as it is right now, and we'll update you with any additions or changes as we collaborate more with Wild Bear.
I think it looks like Atashna has some comments, and I know I have a couple of comments too. Do you want to go?
Great.
Yes. Okay. Did I hear you say that I'm not a tech person. I can do basic things, maybe.
So they're down.
Sometimes I surprise myself going a little bit beyond that. I thought I heard you say that it's access through Verizon, whereas up here, the main cell service is AT&T, not Verizon.
I think
So
it's
take me
online, Atashna. So you could download. I think they said you could access the map at home and then print all this out and then take that PDF printout with you.
Okay, so I don't have a printer. So I'm going to go up to Mud Lake and I want to walk these trails.
Right.
So when I'm at home, take me through this. I don't have a printer. So take me through what I would do.
No, this is awesome. This is awesome to hear this stuff.
Would a question be, will you have like a trifold flyer or anything for people to do it on site if they just turn up?
Yeah,
so that's one thing we are.
Yep. as long as it's
Go
cool
ahead,
with
Maya.
Boulder County, you know, to leave that there, we can have those packets printed. You know, they have a what is the
Okay.
kids thing called? There's a little holder there that we could put some pamphlets in. So, or we could leave packets at the community center or something where it's, or the library or something where
Visitor
it's
center.
visitor center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the library in the visitor center would be great.
Yeah. My other
Did you
comment
We'll be
is
meeting with,
the indigenous acknowledgement. Where are you going to have that? Is that going to be something on a plaque at the trailheads or what?
Just go ahead.
so that would be, it would just be a point on either the map or it would have a corresponding stop. So it would be kind of a section of that pamphlet as you're walking around. We won't be installing anything on the trail. Most of this will either be like the paper pamphlet that you have or using our maps. So it's kind of just, yeah, it's kind of virtual
Or it
or
would be audio.
paper.
It would
Yeah.
be an audio
Yeah, or it would be
acknowledgement.
audio.
It's
And that
kind of
will
like
be
a
the first thing when you
self-contained.
bring up the when you bring it up in any form, be it a pamphlet or on the internet, that will be the first thing that you see is the land acknowledgement or here.
Yeah, it'll be the, other than just like the first one that talks about like parking and kind of
Yeah.
what is our, yeah, our next thing would then be the land acknowledgement.
Do you have it someplace that I could look at the land acknowledgement that you have written?
But yeah, here, I can share
Like
this
send it to me?
screen. Yeah, what's your, if you want to
Are
put your email in the chat, I could easily email that to you.
you guys in touch with Ava Hamilton and the Right Relationship folks in Boulder? I'm assuming she does a lot of the land acknowledgements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We haven't engaged them on the Take a Hike, but I have been going to the Right Relationship Boulder meetings.
Yeah, they'd be a great kind of source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You said to send my email in the chat.
There's also an attachment to the email that Jesse sent
Oh,
out.
I see. Enter
You can-
chat message here. Okay.
And I'm happy to beta test as well if you guys would like. I live down the road and mountain bike over there all the time, so I can.
Okay, so
I'm
my
happy to do it.
email's in the chat.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
I did that.
And yeah, that'd be great to have a beta
I could
tester
even take
too.
some neighbor kids with me and have them go through it as well and see what what
Yeah,
their experience is.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be
sounds good.
great. Sam, do you mind putting your email in there as well? I'm just taking everyone's emails.
It's
and
actually
putting
the
them in
first
notes.
one in there, ovet.samuel@gmail.com, so you can just grab it. Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
more than
Yeah.
happy to.
Well, I'm super excited. I mean, I think it combines like two of my favorite things, maps and like nature education. I think it's a really stellar location, Mud Lake. I know it doesn't really have kind of the forest treatment aspect to it there, but I think there's some really good pluses to it. There's easy access, there's plenty of parking, it's kind of accessible to all different difficulty levels, like how advanced and easy. You can make it shorter or longer. Yeah, I think it'll be a really popular location. I've been working at Wild Bear as an educator this summer, so I've like, had a special insight into the Mud Lake area. Last week was our final week of teaching, and I made this treasure map. We went on a scavenger hunt of Mud Lake, and so I did this little map for the kids, and we all went on a little treasure hunt around, like scavenger hunt around Mud Lake. So yeah, I think it's a great spot. And then, like John said, I think it would be good just to acknowledge that access point, especially for locals who might be walking in from the neighborhood down there, just that they could start at that location and do it, in any order.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, yeah. And I'll have to, once we have the all of these different technologies kind of wrapped up too, we'll kind of present that too. So it's nothing to we'll have like corresponding instructions and everything on how to access this, and so we'll have it pretty ironed out by then. So we would definitely love to have feedback on that too. And I think it'll be really cool having the audio, honestly, because you'll be able to download it ahead of time at your house. And then you can just listen to it, and each one we're aiming for about, a minute to 90 seconds for each stop. So, you're not like, it doesn't take
Yeah.
you forever to hike it, but I think it'll be really cool.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool, really
That's
exciting
awesome.
project. Put me down as a beta tester too.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much for having us again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you both of you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you. So let's see. Kind of got all kinds of things to truck through here. I feel like maybe we should. Do you mind if we shuffle just a couple of things around? Because the next thing was we've got the request for the alternates, which we kind of just discussed that with Sam, and about Dan resigning and
Yeah.
getting new people on the board. I feel like it would make more sense to just discuss maybe real quick the officer elections and bylaws, and the website. Just kind of get some of the technical stuff. Okay, would that be
Works
okay?
for me. Yep.
Okay. So, like board technical issues. So we discussed adding alternates at our last meeting. We're going to post all that. We're going to get the notice in for new members. Tonight we need to make some motions to elect or re-elect the board officer roles. So we are looking for elections, official election for chair, vice chair, and secretary. So as far as it goes for me, I will offer to continue as chair until my term is up next year. However, I would definitely also be supportive if someone else would like to volunteer for the role. The main duties are they're just kind of acting as a conduit between board members and organizations and staff and the public, and collecting that information, and then kind of transmitting that between all of us, and then writing agendas and compiling some of the meeting packets where necessary. Vice chair, which I'm really hoping somebody will offer to step up to this role at least, because it serves as backup, and that just would mean that you're kind of ready to assume those duties at any given time, and it's kind of not such a intense role. And then we are also hoping to get a secretary. Atashna has offered to do secretary. I know it's going to be tough for you, Atashna, too. So I know it might not be something that you could do every single time. And I'm taking the minutes tonight. So would anyone like to, I guess, motion or elect anyone for these roles?
I'll second the motion that you remain as the president.
I'll make the motion that Jesse be elected to chair, that John has already seconded.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So would John, or I guess I can't be BOT liaison. I would have to, from attending members, it would have to be John or Atashna. John, would you like to be the vice chair of Prosa?
Well, just as you know, I'm in and out of this, but I usually make the meetings, so I guess I could be the vice chair.
It would just be handy to get the role filled, and then Atashna could be kind of secretary for when you can, and I'll be happy to step in.
Sure, and especially over the winter, I'm there all the time, so that should work out.
And I'm sure our new members will be super active and into participating in between meetings as well. So that's kind of what we're really looking for, is a membership that it's not only willing to participate during the meetings, but also to put in a couple of hours in between meetings, following up with emails, whatever little task you can do. Thanks, guys. Do I need to motion that John be appointed vice chair?
It would be ideal just for formality to do so.
Motion that John be appointed to vice chair.
I'll second.
We're supposed to be voting on each one of these, right, Miranda?
Oh,
Yeah, although you could, I mean, I guess if you wanted to just make one giant motion, you could do that.
giant motion. Okay.
Well, because I'm not going to do any of the roles, I'll make the giant motion, which is that I
Right.
motion that Jesse Ansari be elected as chair of ProSab, that John Adler be elected as vice chair, and that Atashna Metis and Jill Werner be elected as secretary.
Can anyone second, since we're all
No.
in that?
No, you all have to, one of you has to second, which is fine.
I'll second.
Perfect.
Let's call the roll.
Thank you.
Do you want me to do it? I can do the roll.
Sure.
Eric Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Tashna Medicine Werner,
Yes.
Jesse Ansari,
Yes.
and John
I
Adler.
thought you said Jesse, I'm sorry.
Jesse, I am sorry. I'm sorry. No, John Adler.
We get that a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel like Jesse and I are in a groove now, so I'm glad you're sticking around. We got our
Yes.
flow going.
Yes.
Well, I tried.
You're in it. You're stuck.
Delegation, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're working through. Yeah, we got some good folks. There's just a lot. There's a lot on our agenda to get through. So while we're on technical things, I was going to just hopefully suggest that we could discuss the ProSab website and see what needs amending or adding to that. Did you have some specific feedback you were looking for, Miranda?
No, we just, so Peter's really redesigning from scratch. And so what is there, if you want what's there carried over, Atashna gave some recommendations. We're happy to do that. If you kind of want to scratch it and start all over, happy to do that too. Atashna, I was going to go ahead and pull open your email here. This is the only feedback I've received so far. Did you want to run through this, Atashna?
Yeah, it's really tiny.
All right, let me zoom in.
Well, I'm going to, let me see if I can bring it up on my, damn. I don't know how to do
Just
that.
increase that. Can you see it better? I just increased it.
Okay, yes, much better.
Great.
Okay, so, I think my first comment is I think he's done a fantastic job of making the website, upgrading the website. So it's more in alignment with some of the other advisory board websites. It's structured well, it's easy to read. I like a lot of the pictures, graphics. I think that's important. We have to keep in mind that any information that is on the website is for the public. It's not just for an individual group or department. So with that in mind, I went through the assets list for ProSab. About a year, oh God, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I drove all around town looking for the assets. I marked off the locations and what was there. And I also contacted the county commissioner's office because some of the parks, I love history. And I love to know the history of ordinary people and place. And I think a lot of people are interested in that as well. And so some of the parks that have names to them, like Joe Flaherty. Who is Joe Flaherty? So I contacted the county commissioner's office and got a little bit of history. It was very difficult digging it up, actually, but I got some history on who these parks are named for and why. And I think it's very important to include that information. But scrolling down here, Amanda, can you scroll down. Okay, on the assets map, the locations, the majority of locations just say Creekside. Well, they're not Creekside. If I was a tourist coming into town, I'd probably stop at the visitor center and want to know about these things and where they are. So what I did was I changed the location. So for instance, oh, Amanda, can you just scroll up a teeny bit?
Miranda.
Okay, so this list is like, he lists every asset for the title. I think it would be more appropriate just to call it, and it's easier for people just to call it the ProSab assets list for whatever those assets are. Instead of saying the ProSab Town of Nederland benches and features and stuff, just call it the ProSab assets list. So have that as a name. The visitor center location, put the location in. It's at Highway 119 and West First Street. As an uninformed person coming into town or a newcomer to town, I think these locations need to be specific. We need to give people information. This is information. The cemetery location is not north of town. It's on Forest Road. He put down, and I know Peter is relatively new to town too, so I think this would behoove everyone. We don't have a Gercio Memorial Park. We have Barker Meadow Park, and one of the features is Gercio Memorial Ball Field. The Chipeta Park is not Creekside. Chipeta Park is on Lakeview Drive. So if I'm coming into town and I want to know where Chipeta Park is, then somebody's going to say to me, look for Lakeview Drive. Take a left on Lakeview Drive, not go down by the creek. Same thing with Veterans Memorial. Veterans Memorial is not a park. Veterans Memorial is an other, and the location is in Chipeta Park. These things, I've changed them so that they're more accurate and give people a base to know where they're going. I'm going to skip number 4 for a moment. The skate park location, most of these have to do with the location. The skate park location is next to the teen center. The ice rink and tennis courts are located on Indian Peaks Drive. The Tungsten Trail location is the covered bridge in town to Ware Bridge. This gives visitors and many new locals a benchmark to know where things are and where they're going. Fisherman's Law is a little more complicated. Just stepping back for a second, Public Works, I gave Public Works the list. And what they did is this list is set up for the Public Works people. It's not set up for visitors and locals. So these are why I'm making these recommendations. The Fisherman's Law, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe at some point in the future SAB is going to develop some kind of a garden there where Fisherman's Law is. Isn't that where that's going to be located?
Wetland restoration led by the Ignite. It's an Army Corps engineer program.
Okay, but that's going to be where Fisherman's Law is, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so Fisherman's Lot is not a park, it's a parking lot right now. The location is by the teen center. Now there is a trail with a bench. There's no sign. However, the trail is right when you're walking down to the end of East First Street. You'll see the parking lot on the left, but there's kind of an overgrown trail next to the creek on the right. That's the Creekside Trail. It's located at the junction of East First Street and First Street, and it leads to Ware Bridge. So we could designate it, instead of saying Fisherman's Lot, maybe just call it the Creekside Trail by the Teen Center. So those are my recommendations on that list. Is there something else to scroll down?
No, that was the end of it, I believe.
Okay.
No, it makes sense to me. I mean, the only one that Fisherman's Lot is just because that's what's referred to by
Everybody,
everyone.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is going to be slated to change. So
Yeah.
maybe start thinking about what the future name should be.
Well, it's
And
going to
when-
be that, it's going to be that wetland restoration area. So
Yeah, I wonder what.
at some point in the future. So I think with all of these parks, even the ones that are other that really nobody knows where they are or who they're named after, none of them have any signs. And I really believe that, first of all, they need to have a sign, a small rustic sign with the name of the park. And all of these parks, even the like pocket parks, where there's some, I had a disagreement with parks, with the public works people. They need to have a small sign. They also need to be groomed. They need to have the grasses cut. There should be a small bench and a little sign that says, pick up your dog poop or something. So that these pocket parks, which are not neighborhood parks, they are Nederland pocket parks. They belong to all the residents, so that they can be, so residents will know about them and they can be used. I mean, somebody could take their dog on a walk in the pocket park as long as they pick up after them, or somebody could take a book and sit on a bench there and read on a nice day.
Should we put like this that on an agenda, future, like maybe next month's agenda, because it all goes back to kind of the budget, doesn't it? So we need to keep kind of readdressing the funding for parks and for the parks department in town.
Yes.
So maybe that should go on next month's agenda as an item, just to discuss the future of funding parks and how, the logistics.
The signage and the features, yes. Because they need a sign, a bench, and just for everyone's comfort, a dog poop pedestal. And they need to be maintained by parks and by the public works.
Is there a deadline to address like the town budget? It's usually December.
No, so we'll start work sessions on the budget on September 14th. So you talking about it at your next meeting, let's see, would be fine, because then as we head into the second work session on the 28th, we'd have ProSab weigh in. And that first work session is usually just like a high level overview.
Okay.
So yeah, let's definitely talk about it on the 16th.
So that would be a budget for ProSab.
I think, as you know, we're really we're really limited in that funds. I think, Eric, correct me if you feel otherwise, that might be a good opportunity to start talking about some thoughts for the Tungsten Village money and the money we received from Eldora for renting Gershio. Though those funds are really slated for parks and trail development. And I know Trustee Corvallin has a strong desire that we start addressing that. So Eric, what do you think if we talked about it next meeting?
Sure.
Great.
At least get discussion started.
Yeah.
Yeah. The money's there. We need to start talking about it, utilizing it.
My only addition, Miranda, would be maybe for the website would be to add on that first main page maybe a link to the park and special event rental event kind of things for parks and rec sites.
You mean the fee schedule and stuff?
Yeah, no, you know, for people who want to maybe rent the pavilion at Chipeta
Oh,
Park, or
yes.
you know, that kind of thing, or if they
Yes.
want to have a special event on one of the fields or one of the parks, just a
Mm-hmm.
direct link
How
to
they
that
go
page.
about doing that.
Which there is a page dedicated to that, but not one that links from ProSab.
Okay.
Oh, something else in line with what you just said, Jesse. I think we need to emphasize in some way, you know, that the dedicated bench program. And if we can put a map that shows the benches that have been dedicated and who they're dedicated to.
Okay.
Because that will spark people, oh, there's a bench and it's dedicated to this person. Maybe I'd be interested in dedicating a bench, and how do I go about doing that? So if I know, oh, there's Jeff Austin's bench, that's cool, then would spark more interest
Yeah, absolutely.
and have a picture of the bench.
Can I add it? I just want to say benches are great too, but maybe sculptures, maybe something a little, benches are nice, but I don't know, maybe some more interesting things too. You know what I mean? There are a lot of, and I know, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that in there, that maybe some, like a sculpture or something more,
Yeah, Amanda, we've actually discussed things like that. I suppose it could warrant some further discussion. I think one of the two main issues regarding that would be liability and responsibility.
I totally understand.
But they are
sure
good
you've been over
ideas.
it. Yeah, just featuring local artists or some kind of, I don't know, but and I do, I love benches, and I completely understand the significance of them, but sometimes I don't know. Sorry, sorry.
No, that's okay. And I'm old, so I love benches, and I'd love to sit on a bench and look at a nice sculpture by the creek.
For sure, for sure.
Talking about benches, Atashna, we do have like the installation of like the whole bunch of benches that we got the money for the grant, and I've sourced a bunch of rocks, like agate slices and ammonites
Oh my
and cool
gosh.
stuff that
Ooh,
can be inlaid into the concrete around all the benches.
wow,
We have permission to do that just to make them cuter.
nice. Okay. I think we can really beef that up and really promote it.
Anyone else got some stuff on the website? Any recommendations? I guess that's ongoing. So if you do think of something, send it over to Peter or
It's
myself.
ongoing to an extent. We have a deadline of September 24th. And I'm not saying we can't update it after September 24th, but Peter, he wants to obviously make it as good as possible when we launch. So please give us feedback between now and then.
Within the next week or two would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to be really busy those last kind of 3 weeks leading up to the deadline. So the sooner we have your information, the better.
Awesome. That's exciting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah,
exciting.
my only comment was maybe update that GoCo grant link to what
Yep.
we currently are doing.
I know, I just thought it's very old. So just so you know, this is not our site. We will be abandoning this site for a site that's hosted. It'll be a colorado.gov site. So it's hosted through the statewide internet portal authority. It's really clean looking. I'm very excited. Just the ease of sorting through things will be great. The searchable function. So what you see now, we're actually not putting any effort into this website just because it won't be.
Just content.
Yeah,
So why are we discussing it then?
It'll kick you to the new site.
Then why are
Just
we
for
discussing it?
Because
For
we need to
content,
know
Natasha.
the content you want moved over.
Oh, you said,
okay.
could you say that again? What site to go to?
I don't have the URL yet of what
okay.
it's in just a testing phase.
Okay.
But what he'll do is when he builds the ProSab site, he'll send you a link so you can see what it looks like before it goes live.
Great. Would you like to give us, or would you be able to give us a quick update on the item that's upcoming meeting formats, Miranda.
Yeah, do you want
I
to do
guess
the bylaws really quick? So I didn't actually get any feedback, but Atashna's, but Atashna, I couldn't open that document. So I don't know what your feedback is on the bylaws aside from adding in the alternate.
yeah, that was all. It all looked good to me. I reread it.
And so Atashna, I don't know if you want to give me access to your Google Drive. I can open it.
Okay, how do I do that?
Or do you just want to share your screen so we can see it on your end?
Okay, so I'm going to my inbox. And then I go to Google Drive or something. I
Yep.
don't know how to do this stuff.
Yeah, go to your Google Drive.
You can just
Um,
type into the bar at the top. You can just type in Google Drive, like it's Google.drive, I think. Google
Okay.
Drive.google, I think.
Drive.google. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, here's docs.
Yeah, that's it.
I go into docs. And what am I looking for? ProSab revised charter
That's what you commented on, then yes.
or ProSab bylaws? I think it was ProSab
It's
bylaws.
both documents that I'm looking for feedback on. So if you made comments on both, I'd like to see those.
Oh, I'm sure I did, but that's not the right one, I think. I don't think that's the right one. Okay, let me see here. ProSab minutes, ProSab 616.
I guess the one kind of thing is it's highly unlikely I'll get the bylaws on the September Board of Trustee agendas just because they're already so packed. So if we wanted to just table this, we could talk about it in
Yeah,
September.
let's do that.
Okay.
Because I'm sure I had some comments.
Yeah,
I don't
if
wanna
you'll see,
take the
I
time.
sent an email asking for you to give me access. So you should be able to just click on my email and give that to me. But let's table this because
Okay,
yeah, that's just an item that's gonna have to get pushed out to October.
okay.
That's fine. Yeah, that'll give us you if you can share it with us all, and we
Yeah.
can get feedback.
Yeah,
So in terms of meeting in person or a hybrid, of course, we're still working towards the hybrid pieces. And I've recently talked to some sound technicians who may be able to assist us. But with the Delta variant and some health orders that are coming down the pipeline, likely to be implemented by Boulder County Public Health next week of masks indoors, we are going to remain virtual until further notice.
Yeah, makes sense. I've known 3 people within the last few weeks to contract COVID, all of whom have been vaccinated, and I didn't know anyone the whole year who got it until now. So.
Wow. Yeah,
Wow.
it's definitely becoming a common thing. So I of course we know, but that risk factor is very much there. And it's hard to have a meeting if even the person in front of a mic has a mask on. So WebEx is our world. But what we will be doing is rather than sending new meeting access information every month, we're going to send just a blanket one that covers like 6-month periods at a time. So you'll just get one link, one calendar invite for the next 6 months. And then we'll still send reminders of what the access information is before the meeting, but you'll have a reoccurring calendar invite.
Great.
Assuming you didn't already get one. I don't know if you did. I don't think Peter did them yet. Our plan was to do it September through at least the end of the year to start.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so moving through, hopefully you received the items on the use of Gershio Ball Field on Frozen Dead Guy days. And then I sent you a couple of visuals. So you should have I think it was called the 2020 Frozen Dead Guy Days Festival permitting letter. So if you want to make sure you read through that and then read through some of the regulations, the special event page link that I sent in the email.
So I think
And
what
then
we need to know tonight is
need
quorum.
to know who's available. Yeah, if
And
John.
sorry, Jesse, I was just going to say we had to do it on Wednesday because of the event organizer's schedules. And because Wednesday is planning commission, we really need to do it like around 5 or 5:30 so that we're done by 7. So I'd love to do it at 5, assuming we have quorum.
And I
John
would
can
hope
make.
you can. So John is a yes. What do you think, or Atasha and Eric?
On the 25th at 5?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
I'm texting Brian and Chris right now to ask them.
5, it might work for me, but it's a little early. I do have a kiddo who has an appointment that runs till 5 on Wednesdays down in Boulder. Like if it were 5:30, I could definitely make it. But
I mean, I feel like 5:30. It should just. I would like to be able to do it in an hour. I would hope that we could.
So if we did it at 5:30, really like hard stop 5:45 or 6:45, we'd have to commit to keeping it to just slightly over an hour.
Yeah, 5:30 to 6:45 would.
is it
That'd
is
be
this
more
a
reasonable.
virtual meeting?
Yep, virtual. And so Brian said he could come. So we at least have quorum. Like if Eric, you were a little bit late, we could at least
Okay.
get started at 5:30.
Okay.
Amanda, will
Yeah.
that work for you? 5:30?
No, that's totally fine. And yes, that would be fine for us. Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully we'll be able to get some reps, a couple of Frozen Dig guys, and then a couple of people from town staff, and then we'll just be the listeners and try and give what input we can. Because they
And
Frozen
I
Dig
also
have
guys.
a
an
question
agenda.
about this meeting, though, this second meeting. Why are we having a second meeting? You've sent us the letter. I made just a few comments, and you sent us this map. And for the most part, I think everything looks fine. What's necessitating a second meeting?
So I think there's two parts. We really would like the other event organizer, Sarah Martin, a part of the meeting, and she couldn't be here tonight. And we'd
Okay.
also like an opportunity as staff. So we as staff have not had a chance to discuss the proposal number 2. And we'd like to do that before that meeting.
Okay.
Because it may be likely that I do feel like the organizers addressed a lot of our items in the letter. And I personally think proposal 2 looks great, but of course I'd like Public Works to weigh in. So that's the reason to have a separate meeting is
I see.
quickly
Okay.
have a vote. What we want is for ProSab to say, yes, we like proposal 2, or we want it changed slightly and here's how. And then we take a formal vote. So there's a record that we are in complete agreement on how Frozen Dega Days will move forward with their 2022 event, since they're having to modify due to the work being done over at Barker Meadow.
Okay. Okay.
But Chris Perret said he can come too, so you actually would have a full board for that. So I'll send out that meeting invite.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So did we decide on 5 or 5:30 then at the end? Is it 5:30?
5:30 with a hard stop of 6:45.
Okay.
That sounds
I think
very.
the key to that is that we all make some time to review all the documents beforehand and have any questions or comments ready so that we come into the meeting prepared so that it goes, it's expedited.
Yeah.
Allowing for tangents that we get off on. So
Yeah.
And so
But it was.
I'll send an agenda ahead of time, but the kind of the thought structure is that town staff will review kind of where we are to date and the journey we've gone on with the event organizers, allow Amanda and Sarah to describe the proposals they have submitted, and then turn it over to ProSab for discussion.
okay. Can I ask a question about the document that was submitted so far?
Yeah, the site
Okay.
plan.
Well, the fee breakdown is
Yeah, the
the
fee breakdown.
$1,500 deposit, is that refundable or not?
It is refundable, you know, if the field is returned in the way in which the kind of the agreed
Okay.
upon state it was in when we turned it over to them.
Okay, because that wasn't clear on the breakdown.
Yeah, so that's why I like dug up the link to the Parks and Rec special event rental sites too, because I knew it existed, but I didn't know where it was, so I had to do some digging around today to find that, and just to try and compare it to kind of what was being requested. I mean, it's a lot of paperwork to read through, so that just gives us a little bit more time. Okay. Yeah, if that's okay with everyone. Yay.
And I did want to ask her, I'm just curious, in the past, we've not been charged for setup days because basically it comes down to, you don't know what the weather's going to be like. So sometimes we try and set up a little earlier or later, you know what I mean, depending on the situation. And we've never been charged for those days. And I mean, I guess it's okay. I was just wondering where that came from.
Yeah, so that's something new for this year. So I'll tell you, even like the gravel race, they were charged that fee for their day before use and had they need a day after, because we can't rent it to anyone else. So that's the fee, then kind of that daily fee associated with the setup breakdown.
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't realize for an event of that size, it was a $550 per day.
Yeah, and I think that's
So
rather
that's
steep.
not
Is
the
that
fee,
something that could be negotiated?
So I want to clarify though, that's the fee for the actual event itself. The daily fee for setup, I believe is, I don't have the letter.
100. 100, yeah.
For an all day use, yeah, $100.
Yeah. But is that on top of the 550?
Correct, yes. Now, every event has an opportunity to file for a discount fee waiver form, which Amanda, I can send that to you again. I believe we did some of
That
that.
is all, yeah, that's under the link, that Parks and Rec kind of special event rental pages sites put up. Yeah, I think that's why it's going to help everyone to kind of read through that information and
Yeah,
get a bit
that's why it's
familiarized.
important that it be on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. It was just a change, and obviously we're kind of a unique situation, and I guess in the big picture. But I mean, are we being charged to make the field usable, and being charged for those extra days to make the field usable if it's not, in usable condition? Those kind of things. It's if it's
So I think that would be a
snow piled
different
on or muddy or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're being penalized for trying to deal with the condition, but anyhow.
I think that would be handled in a case by case basis. Like if the operating on the assumption we're turning the field over to any event organizer in pristine condition, then it's just a fee for us not being able to use it for anything else. But of course, if we were turning over it and it needed a bunch of work, then that would be a fee that would be either refundable or could be paid at a later time.
Yeah.
However, what I don't understand with that fee is, okay, so just as an example, so Frozen Dead Guy Days will be set up on, let's say, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then Frozen Dead Guy Days is on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then they break down on Monday and Tuesday. It doesn't seem fair to be charging $550 a day for the event, and on top of that, charging $100 a day for the setup when the festival is already set up.
So the $100 a day would be for, like, say the event's Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be for that Tuesday, Wednesday, and the following Monday, Tuesday. It's not in addition to the daily fee.
But not while the event is in place.
Right.
So since the event is on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're not going to be charged they're not going to be charged $300 for a setup fee.
Correct.
Okay. These things need to be clarified. They need to be made clearer, I think, in the documents going forward.
I
So
just
that
want to
it
add,
doesn't
I
become
have to add in that, you know, what if there's a snowstorm right after the festival? We're penalized for that, you know, that it takes an extra day or two to clean it up if you physically can't do it. Or like I just said, we maybe set up early with a window of weather,
Mm.
you know? So it's like, and they've just always been flexible with us on saying like, yeah, of course you're going to try and set up on the sunny day, not on the day that the snowstorm's coming or the wind's blowing or, you know, and it just seems like, I don't know. We just 19 years never been charged for setup or breakdown days, but I
So
guess
I will clarify though, as we went into 2020, that there was a fee charged for setup and it was in the contract. So this is consistent with how 2020 was going to be handled. But again, that's the reason for the discount fee waiver.
I get it. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that the 2020. So you know, it's fine, but I do think that there should be reasonable setup and breakdown things involved in your fee because you're going to have to set up and break down. And
So that's
if
where
you're
the
renting
fifth
a field for
discount
$550 a
fee.
day, you know what I mean? Obviously, you're not going to set up the day of.
Yeah.
See,
So
you're,
that's
so
I
you're
mean, like you're not
saying
going to set
you're
up on
justifying
Friday
the
and just be charged for Friday. So it's kind of arbitrary being like, I mean, it's intuitive that you're going to have to set up. And it's not
Right.
going
It's
to
also
be
intuitive that
using
you
the
have to pay
field.
to
You
do
know what
this.
I
I mean,
mean?
I've had
Like,
to
you know,
pay to set
you.
up at any venue that I've ever rented in my life. I
I'm
mean, I've
sorry.
always had to pay for setup. So this
You
is
do
very
have to pay for the
standard
setup
and
days.
typical.
Okay, that's fine.
So
I
the
was
one
just,
thing I would
I was
say
just
though
curious.
is if there is concern about the fee, that's where the discount fee waiver comes from. And so that's always welcome to any event organizer to waive. So what's in that letter, Tasha, to clarify, that's what the fees are. And so if there's a desire to have those adjusted, any event organizer can complete that form. And I did just send it to Amanda and Sarah should they need it. Yeah, I mean, I think it is very typical and it mirrors the way we approach 2020. Again, though, it doesn't mean that that form can't be filled out where the event organizers can state why they feel certain fees should be waived and what they would expect that waiver to look like.
So it looks like there's
So
different.
Eric, did you say that there always is a setup fee in your
No.
experience, or there isn't?
For Frozen, I mean, I've only been here 2 years. Before, for large events and Frozen Dead Guy Days, 2020, a setup fee was charged, and recently the Ned Gravel race was charged a setup fee for their use of Chipeta the day before the event.
Okay, but I'm addressing this to Eric. Did you say in your experience there is or there isn't a setup fee?
In my experience, if you're using a venue of any kind on any day for setup or the event itself, you're paying for it.
Okay,
I've never had an experience where you're comped setup days for a large
Okay.
event at a venue. When I run
Okay.
events all the time out of the university, and it never works
Okay.
that way for us, at least.
Yeah, and I think what the organizer is trying to say is if I agree, yeah, I have 2 days to set up and 2 days and take down times 100 is $400 done. But if I set up 2 days before the 2 days because of weather, then don't hit me for 2 days to set up and the 2 days for the gap
Yeah.
period. That I think
Yeah,
that's
and I
what
think
they're
that
trying
could
to
be
say.
negotiated when that moment actually comes.
Yeah.
Rather than in advance.
I guess that was my point is there are certain situations in which we actually don't even bill until after the event itself because there are a series of unknowns. For example, Ned Gravel, we didn't know how many police officers we were going to end up needing. So we billed that later. And so there are a lot of circumstances in which we don't expect the funds. Of course, we need deposit and rental fees up front, but there may be others that we don't charge up front and wait to see what kind of environmentally happens.
Excuse me.
I think regardless, the fees are very, very reasonable and that the cost is
How many police officers did you need for Ned Gravel, Miranda? Sorry.
We ended up having three officers plus 2 rangers, all working a variety of different hours and time. But the total fee to Ned Gravel ended up being approximately $1,500.
Cool. Yeah, and if you look at the site, there's like a breakdown between like different discounts. So like non-profits can get can get almost all their fees waived for certain things. There's kind of a breakdown on there.
I think something that we need to be careful of is when you say there is the possibility of negotiating certain fees, that could be open to interpretation and viewed somewhat as compromising. Well, you did it for them, but you're not doing it for me. So it might behoove us with the breakdown of fees and the negotiation and the ability to negotiate circumstances to actually outline what those might be.
So that is
that
this
it's applied
policy.
equitably.
I'm happy to share this policy. This policy is very specific. You have to fill out certain criteria in order to even be considered for it. And so that criteria, sorry, is on the second page. You have to meet certain criteria for us to approve it. So it's not just being given out kind of willy-nilly. This form goes along with any time we waive a fee. We're indicating exactly why and the reason that it fits the criteria here. I'm happy to share this with ProSab too.
Yeah,
That's
that would
all
be great. Yeah.
That's on the special events page, the application form, I think.
Yeah, and this is the policy and the application.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all of those need to be on the ProSab website or a link to them.
Yeah, I think a link, I mean, Peter has a special events website page, and so I think a link to
Link
that
to it.
is probably more appropriate.
Okay.
Because special events have, a ton of different forms that goes along with them depending on the nature of the activity.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm sorry, I've started sneezing loads. I don't know what is happening, but I'm just gonna sneeze my way through the rest of the meeting, I think. All right, so great. We'll see you on Wednesday evening, 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, yeah, there's kind of a lot to discuss as you can see, and just little logistics and things that we could use for the future to streamline this process and make it easier and less stressful for everyone.
Can I add one more thing? Just along, I think it's very relevant to, it's a question that I think they need to get answered, is the condition of the field when we take it over.
Okay.
And a major point of contention, or it's caused a lot of not good feelings, was, so we got the field, but there was a lake on it and it was unusable. And we had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars mitigating it. And then it seems to be that Chris really wants it to be, we take the field in whatever condition it is. So then that fee of you're setting up, but what if you're mitigating so you can actually use it? I'm hoping that will never happen again, but it happened.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you're renting out a field, you have to take some responsibility to say that it's going to be in usable condition. Not,
Yeah.
And I think that's fair enough to say. And especially if you're going to charge extra days for setup, if we're spending thousands of dollars to make it usable. Does
Yes.
that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yes, it does.
And I'm not trying to fight against, if you want to say we inherit it in the condition that it's in and it's our problem to make it usable, but we're going to charge you every day that you have to work to make it usable.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, but that's the goal, is to be able to give festivals and events a usable space. I think
Yes,
that's,
and I do think that is the responsibility of town. To do
Yes,
But in that
definitely.
contract that you have, it says that they're not responsible for the condition of the field. We will accept it as it is.
So I want to
And
just clarify
I
that's not
just
the,
don't quite agree with that, or I think that needs to be nailed down a little bit better, because what are you supposed to do if you can't put up a tent, if you can't do your stuff, because there's.
Well, the responsibilities will have to be clarified in that contract.
so this is
Not
not a
just a general
contract. I want to make this very clear. What is sent to you all is a permitting letter stating we all agree to move forward with permitting for 2022 under the following conditions. So of course, at the meeting on Wednesday, we'll pull this up and make adjustments, but this is not the contract that Pros and Dagetes will then later sign that will go before the Board of Trustees. This is just saying we agree to permit the event.
do you have to do a contract too then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then
So right
we will
now,
see-
what we're trying
we
to
will
get to is
follow
a
up with
place
the
where,
contract.
what's that?
We will follow up. We'll receive the contract for review.
Typically that goes to the Board of Trustees directly, but because it includes like police and a lot of other things outside just the use of
Right.
the field itself. And so I guess I'll take cue from Eric. I'm not sure it would be appropriate for ProSat
our
because it's not
section.
specific to the field. It's specific to a lot of different other components of the event.
Yeah, probably just our component would get.
Yeah, so I just
into
want to clarify where we are is that, there was some, I mean, we originally communicated, as you see in this letter, that Bertio couldn't be used just because of seeding. We were planning to seed and later decided we would adjust that. What this letter is saying and what I want to walk away on Wednesday with is saying, yes, we agree to move forward with permitting under the following conditions.
Under the following conditions. Okay.
So that as they build their plans related to this large special event application, they know what's expected to be submitting because they need to start submitting documents 6 months prior to the event, and we're coming up tight against that deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the key is under the following conditions, which is not only for the event organizers, it's also for the town.
Yep.
These are the conditions. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and as you see in this letter and what I had explained recently to Sarah and Amanda is like, we are looking for kind of certain contingency plans, but in those plans, the expectation is to include, for the event organizers, to include what their expectations are for town. What do they want to see us do versus what will they do? And so I'm happy to spell that out more and just work on that document together on Wednesday. So we leave something that all parties feel comfortable signing.
Okay, so it's a collaboration.
Yep.
Okay.
And so one thing I think that it's worth reflecting on between now and then, just to wrap this up, is just like if town is not charging enough to maintain the field in a condition that is usable, like if the funds that we're generating from renting the property are not enough to maintain the condition of the field, for instance, right? Just as an example, then we have to rethink the model entirely. So in this case, I think we should figure out exactly what kind of expectations we have of the condition of the field before it goes to anyone who's renting the venue. What usable means for the town, and then our pricing structure should reflect that. And I think that would be absolutely fair and address what Amanda is saying.
And then it would be fair for the festival event to request an itemized list of the expenses that are being requested, they're being claimed for.
If we ever keep someone's deposit, that is what would be the expectation is for us to give them a breakdown of what we put it towards.
Right.
And also, what if like in the event that expectations as outlined in whatever this letter ends up saying are not met, then what is the solution, right? Because I'm sure the solution is not to cancel Frozen Dead Guy Days, right? So if we do come to a situation where expectations are not met by either side, I think there should be some provision for how that's solved.
Yeah, because on the festival side, they lose the deposit of was it 3,500 or more?
Right, but on our side, there may be some provision like we waive the setup fee, for instance, if we can't keep the field in a usable condition, something along those lines.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If it's not in an acceptable kind of usable condition, that makes sense. Yeah, something. This is why we're going to hold a special meeting so that we can get more detail with it. As you can see, there's just a lot of little bits to kind of look at in detail here and make sure we do a good job representing, everyone. In our city.
Well, I think we're off to a good start with it.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to put that in your brain before the Wednesday meeting. And the fees, I want to say the fees aren't that bad. We finally have a little money, which is great. It's just, how do you say, okay, you're renting this field and no matter what it looks like, that's, that one just doesn't sit right with me.
Right.
Whether, and I get it that it maybe cost them too much money to have it in a certain condition, but if we have to mitigate, then there needs to be something. Yeah, that's all.
Well, Amanda, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think we all appreciate you bringing that to our attention so that we can address it.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want,
Yeah. no, we're here to support events and festivals and sports and everything. So we'll do our best to kind of come up to a good compromise and solution for everyone, I think. Do our best. So Wednesday night we are going to meet again 5:30. Miranda will send us the link out for that. And then if you can think of any more information that maybe needs to be shared and reviewed, let me know and we'll send that out to everyone.
Well, thank you for
Fab.
all the hard work you guys do. I just did so much and I really appreciate it. I don't know much about it, but it's really interesting to see and watch. And thank you for your support.
Thank you for coming, Amanda.
Yeah, you guys have a good night. I'll zoom out of here.
All right, thank you. Wednesday. So I guess we can just address, what do I have on next? We have resilient communities or building code. Any preference?
Building code, being selfish. Building
Building
code,
code.
I will tell you, we haven't received much feedback so far, and so maybe you have it, maybe you don't.
Yeah, it's pretty dry material.
Yeah, it's pretty, not really much we can do with it. You know, building code is building code, and so the board, if adopting, really it's the amendments. So I guess what's in there is kind of a fire code amendment and an energy code amendment that we're looking for feedback on. If you have any, and I know we brought this before you once before, really not much has changed. This is just our final round of outreach.
So I don't understand why it's on ProSab's agenda, Miranda.
Just because of the NPP process, the public participation. This is yet a group who may have weigh in on building code. You may not, but it's, you are an advisory board, so.
Okay, so I started to review it. And I was just confused because it was talking about condos and fire escapes and things that are so totally irrelevant to us that I stopped reading it. Are there particular sections that we should focus on for review?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, Natasha. Like, is there anything kind of that relating to maybe the development of the bathrooms or the pavilion or solar power or sustainability impacts or anything?
No, there really isn't. I mean, I guess the big thing is like if we were to ever make any sort of upgrades to town facilities, and especially if we adopted the code amendments, of course, that may kick into place the fire code requirements for fire resistant material, which I think is a great thing, and then the energy rating index, and ensuring that we are meeting targets to make for more energy efficient homes. I think those are really, I would say, a bit more SAB related, but I think maybe just something for you to know, like if we were to ever maybe mitigate Wingate property and you wanted to build, say like an indoor space there, we're going to have to, of course, meet 2018 building code, but may incorporate those two amendments.
Or like, would it maybe pertain to anything that the Ned Rink or Ned Tennis or with their building updates that they're hoping to do?
It would really be if they were going to make major changes. So what we're proposing to the Board of Trustees is even with regards to coming into compliance with energy rating index, that is for new builds only. We're not looking for like like Ned Rink making a minor modification doesn't mean now you have to like redo the whole thing and add solar panels. Really being realistic that fire and energy can at this time primarily be only applied to new builds.
Well, I think there's one thing that is applicable is outside lighting at night, because isn't that one of our goals is to have a night sky in Nederland? And so, that would be a building code. And I know you're supposed to have down facing lights, but there's plenty of people that have massive spotlights and things that just kind of go against the things the town has said that, we shouldn't be doing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's something that we could comment on.
Well, and code will be maintained the same. And so I think there's also a component where the Board of Trustees will need to decide if they want to codify design standards, because design standards and Netherlands specific desires would then kind of not trump building code, of course, but would be added into building expectations. Now with that lighting, I do know kind of some of the homes, John, you're referring to, and when they're reported, it is a code complaint. Because it is
or, I mean, the usual ones I hear of It's Teens Inc., the post office, the school.
Yeah. I mean, we could have our code enforcement officers go out there and take a look at those. I've actually mainly only heard complaints about homes. There are a few homes in Big Springs that have some pretty aggressive flood lighting systems.
For their security, because we're in a high crime area.
It's actually for like I believe it's like wildlife too, to kick on for the variety
Keep the
of different reasons.
wildlife away.
Well, we usually do connect with them, but I think bigger than building code, because these revisions to interior and exterior lighting doesn't necessarily change, that the expectation of downcast lighting. It would be the design standards that would be in the Board of Trustees' interest to.
Okay.
Right now, they're recommendations, and they really should ideally be codified to have a bit more of that control to make Nederland specific building desires.
Yeah, and and also there's all these people are putting in a lot of these pathway lights and stuff, which you've got all kinds of pathway lights too, right? So anyway, I could just see it getting a lot brighter around Nederland if we don't think
It's
about
a really
it.
good point, John. Like that's one of the things that I hear from people probably the most often is how to go ahead and move towards making Nederland a dark sky community. No,
I think your answer those design standards. So maybe if I could encourage ProSAP that at a future meeting, we take some time to look at design standards. The Planning Commission already started. Their feeling was to keep it still as guidelines and not codification. But if ProSAP felt otherwise, it would be a great discussion to bring before the Board of Trustees on thoughts related to design standards. So I'd love to see if ProSAP pick that up.
So you're saying
Yes,
that this has
I
nothing
would
to do
too.
with building codes then?
It doesn't, it would be supplemental to the building code. Yeah, you'd want to create like the dark sky initiative that belongs in a design standard. But again, I go back to it's our current design standard is just a recommendation. It's just kind of a supplemental. We hope that you'll do this because we don't have it codified.
Yeah, I hope you wear a mask to protect everybody who's going to get sick. I hope you'll do this. I hope you do that. Personal responsibility is a fine line these days that's become politicized. But I would like to see us have a discussion on this.
Yeah, let's start a discussion on it.
I'll send these out. And yeah, I think, sorry, the only time that really,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead. You go.
I was saying, what if there's any example of dark sky, communities where they've achieved dark sky initiatives where they've done it well, and it's been something that has worked well. I'm happy to maybe take a look into those and see if there's any examples where that, not a standard, but an example to follow that, hey, this worked really well, and maybe a similar type of community.
That would be great, Sam.
Yeah,
I can.
Because sometimes those frameworks can be a good, because maybe they tried one thing and said this really didn't work, for whatever odd reason. We all thought it would. So yeah, I can take a look into that if you'd like.
I think one of the keys, Sam, is for communities that are similar,
Right,
that are similar to Nederland.
Well, we can look directly to other communities in Colorado that are, international dark sky communities like Prestone and what else?
There's a
Well, Dark Skies was in the Envision process, and they did a bit of research, and so I just sent you the design standards and included you, Sam, on that.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I'll look into it for sure.
And
I think we should get SAB involved with it too, because it is a sustainability issue. It's sustainability for peace of mind. It's sustainability for the biological of the wildlife. So it'd be good to get SAB on board with it too.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that there are multiple components to becoming a dark sky community. I think that you have to demonstrate a certain amount of citizen support. I think you're also supposed to have like some kind of education component, as well as the strong outdoor lighting ordinance. So it's multiple things. It's not just passing an ordinance.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll share those contacts of people who've got in touch with me, Sam. They've got some emails from people who have got a bit of experience and interest in doing that too. I just don't have time to to do that. So
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it
Mhm.
seems like it would be a very neat thing to have a community where everybody's excited about a dark sky community versus annoyed at the frustrations that accompany
Yeah.
it in a way, you know, we're proud of it.
Yeah.
And want
Get some
to
telescopes
uphold
down
that.
to the telescopes down to the park and do some
Right,
telescopes.
right. And
Mhm.
really, you know, if we understand here's why this is amazing, you know, it really brings a lot of value to our community having this. And so that's why we're going after it, so to speak.
Jesse,
Mhm.
would it be, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
the more I think about it, if there's a desire to adjust the design standards, really it would be great to adopt those at the same time in which a potential building code update was being adopted. And so my ask would maybe be to put that on September's
Yeah.
agenda so that
Yeah.
when we bring it before the board in October, it's something they may not choose to go that route, but it's something they could consider.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. So is there anything else on building code? I know that we did have initially a request, you know, the request to address town codes as related to parks and public land rules. I believe we are shelving that for the time being too.
Yeah, kind of. So a really cool, I recently met with Electra and she has a whole team who's like more than happy to research things. So Sam, an option for you too. And so I actually kicked the project over to them and just that I didn't have much luck through our listers. I only got 2 back and our team, we didn't really love it looking at it with parks or public works and PD. So Electra and her team are researching it, but didn't have anything prepared for today. I just think it's an awesome resource. It's like master level students who are doing some type of like internship program with her. Probably more time than any of us have, and so she's more than happy to support with research projects.
Great. Yeah, is there
Hopefully
anything
next
we
month
can
I'll have an update.
The only thing I'd say about it is that the more that I've thought about this idea, the more concerned I am about passing ordinances regulating the use of parks. I think that it's a very dangerous way to go in terms of how we might be basically how we might empower folks to sort of impose a certain kind of living standard or aesthetic standard on people who are using the parks that I don't think is necessarily appropriate. So yeah,
I mean,
I'm kind of suspicious of the idea altogether, but I'd be interested to see what they come up
So I did want to just share this. So we did come up with this document in the interim. I'll send it to you, just inundate you with emails, which this pulls from our current code. And now this is printed in color on the back of your permit. So if you rent any of our fields, this is guidelines, you know, best practices and guidelines, just as a way for us to say, like, please, you know, do your part here. And this has really, I think, helped quite a bit. And so perhaps we see how this works, but this is now on every permit.
wasn't this brought to us from a complaint with having an RV parked for multiple nights overnight in the parking lot?
Yes, so Chris and Conrad was concerned about that. And I think that is obviously a much larger item for the BOT to tackle, being camping, primarily camping. You know, just the code for camping is hard to enforce.
Yeah, and even having that guideline that says no camping, you know, on the back of the permit, I mean, the definition of camping is difficult to really pin down, as many municipalities and cities and
Yeah.
towns have found.
Yeah.
And, you know, saying no camping could potentially make Netherlands basically, you know, have a law that is unconstitutional or that has been deemed unconstitutional by federal judges already. So I think we just need to be really careful about that sort of thing.
Yeah, it feels like it would be more, you would want it to be more specific, like do not park your RV overnight in in this
Yeah.
parking lot.
The problem PD is having is just that, though. Our code is so broad that they don't even know how to enforce that.
Okay, so we need to make it more specific, but also a bad law is a law that's not enforceable. You know, we can have a whole page of laws, but if they're not it's like having a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on a country road. Well, who's going to enforce that?
Well, I think that's why the PD is just requesting as few actual regulations or laws as
Good.
possible, but just to
They
try
have
and
to
make
be
it,
specific.
yeah, just and to have recommendations at least.
Right.
Yes, they should not be open to interpretation. They should be
There's
specific.
nothing right now. There's nothing for Netherland
That's
parks.
But I think
surprising.
to
not
Eric's point,
surprising.
it's not that easy. You know, you do have kind of federal guidelines, and you definitely lots of parties need to be involved. And it's something that even when Electra was talking to her about it, she was like, "Your attorney needs to deal with this." She's more than happy to research it, but at the end of the day, that has legal written all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be possible to say something like no RV parking. Like that could be possible in the Chipeta parking lot.
Yeah,
But
you
there's
could
people
say-
who park, there's people who are living out of their cars, you know,
Right.
so
it's
it has
still-
to
yeah,
be
you
very
can't say
specific. It
no
has to
car
be
parking in the
detailed.
parking lot.
overnight RV parking or something like real specific.
No overnight vehicle parking.
I mean, even that happens.
I mean,
though. I don't
technically, our code already says that because it says that you can only park a mobile vehicle or home or trailer park in a trailer camp, and the only trailer camp that exists is Rashawn's lot, and so technically we do have that. You know, of course, I think Larry and the PD try to work with people to the best of their ability, and
Yeah.
eventually got to a place with that trailer where they did say like, you gotta get out of here. But we'll work with them. The code does say that now.
I'm on a meeting. Can I call you back?
Okay, and in that case, then it's
Okay, bye.
difficult for me to see what new code actually needs to be written, if any.
Sure. I
So
mean, I
that's
know too.
not really on the agenda tonight.
I'll see what she comes up with. I struggled. Most municipalities don't really have it. They have what we just sent you, which was like best practices.
Okay.
And if you have
Practices.
feedback on that document, we'd love to hear it and modify it. Even if that's removing the camping because it's a bit tricky, but let us know. But yeah, I think it'll bring back whatever it is Electra might find, but she too may struggle.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, anything else on that? Otherwise, we'll move on. We've got a fair bit to kind of just go over for resilient communities. So I guess just first off, they're not here too, but props to Public Works and a big props to Teens Inc., the youth corps, that this last month, they got an amazing start on the Shorelines Trails and Stewardship Project, aka the GoCo Grant Project, down at Barker. So currently trails are being installed. There's like some hardscaping going on, grading is underway, some excavating. There's been a few updates. I guess there's a culvert that has to be removed according to the city of Boulder. Do you have anything specific on that?
No, just that it has to be removed. It has to be removed and then so we'll see how the water pools in that area. And then depending on that, we will either build back in a culvert or do a rain garden. So it's considered phase 2.
Do you think you could pull up the site plan real quick for
Yes,
that?
I'm
Not real quick.
happy to. Let me go. And I guess the kind of couple updates on the trail. So we do have one last round of the work, the youth corps that Jesse was talking about. They'll meet next week, and that will be their last one. And we actually lose all of our temps in 2 weeks. So there's some hustle going on because Nikki had 3 employees helping her, and she'll go back to 3 to 1, her lonely number of 1. So the culvert area that we're talking about is here, right, Jesse? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's where you got rain garden phase 2 if needed, because I just want to see how the water pools or does not pool in this area.
And it certainly does pool in that area, especially if it's graded down there. So hopefully we'll get to meet with Public Works representatives pretty soon just to talk about that stuff, because I'm sure it'll just capture the water. It'll be like a little lake, a little pond, and then it will slowly like drain through to the water table, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, this is the city challenge here. And so, we really felt like the culvert should stay. They felt otherwise. And so I do think that's where phase 2, and we'll really see that luckily before the end of the grant. I think we'll be able to come up with a plan for that.
So the background for that is there's a culvert there. It's been there forever, but it's blocked. So City of Boulder didn't realize that there was a culvert there, and now that we've been talking about clearing it out and opening it up, the City of Boulder is worried about sediment and things being washed into the reservoir from there. Is that
Yep,
is that
that's accurate. Yep.
And then the other thing, I guess I haven't got any updates on, maybe you do, the City of Boulder restroom updates.
So we are working on the designs. We actually did run the designs by Safe Built. The problem is they're not stamped engineering designs, but generally they didn't have any concerns. What we really need to do for them is to have them pull the permit. I'm happy to forward some information on that. That's kind of moving ahead, but we still don't have the IGA in place. The plan was for them to get me the IGA last week. That didn't happen, and so I'm hoping by next week, because their contact is out of town. You know, we're in a weird place where we still need that to be signed. So touching anything on the City of Boulder land is really out this year. We won't do anything there until next year because of that IGA.
Okay, now the thing with the restrooms, it's become a saga. I mean, it seems like it's been going on for 3 or 4 years now, and a few years ago, a couple years ago, we had 2 designs. We chose one of them, and what's become of that?
That is the one that we chose is the one that is going ahead.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I forget the name of it, but it's slightly more rustic, slightly more like rustic siding to it.
And let me see if he sent us something. Let me try to pull it up while we're talking. He sent me something recently. He wanted.
Because I feel like some of this on the part of City of Boulder is just asserting authority.
Yes, I would agree. I think we've gotten much better. You know, they asserted authority, and then we, with Eric's blessing, asserted it right back. And we said, you know, originally we were gonna have a parking lot. We were gonna build them a parking lot.
Yeah.
And we pushed back and said no. Like, they're just making it so hard that we were pretty done.
Yeah.
So my last call with them, she was like, why? You know, what's going on? And I was just like, you make it so hard to work with you. And and I think she heard me and hoped that we could revisit that at a later time, but understood that eventually we just had to pull out. Like, you're not gonna we'll keep going round and round about this.
Yeah.
I wish I will try to find.
Well, they're used to us not doing anything. They're used to just you know, steamrolling over us. And, you know, now we've come into our own. We have intelligent, educated, assertive people who will stand up to the city and the county. And that it's taken a long time, but that's what's necessary.
Yeah, I would say the nature of our relationship is a little different, not in a bad way, but in a way in which Nederland is coming to the table kind of with the same force and energy as they are.
Yes, and they're not used to that.
Probably. But yeah, I mean, my last call with one of their representatives was really pleasant. She understood where we were coming from, and we made some concessions, you know, like if someone was ever to rent Gershio, I guess this is kind of frozen day and be close enough to their field, they asked that they would be allowed to look it over. I don't necessarily see any part of it. Ultimately, it'll be our decision on how we permit it. But they, you know, that's kind of a way in which we could compromise. But they only had, I said, you know, you can't hold on to these forever. You need to then turn it back around to me within 1 week because they are very slow. Yeah. So I don't have great drawings. I don't know if you guys ever looked at like what they actually looked at. I just have like the spec drawings.
We do. I've got them somewhere.
Yeah, I only have specs, but these are the specs of what it would look like. Front, rear, and then the side, and then side showing kind of the internal.
Like standard prefab, but it's the one that's slightly more rustic looking.
Yeah. So
is it?
So they are actually doing. So happy to report, Natasha. We are in a good place where we should be pulling permits soon.
Good.
For that.
Good.
The water lines are all installed. The electric is installed. It's ready to go.
Good.
So the only other thing,
I guess, just be in place by next summer.
Yes, that is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I do want to
Okay.
just a couple of things, Jesse, if you don't mind. So one thing I am going to do is I am still on track to ask. So I had played a little bit of phone tag with Matt, but we are going to still ask for an extension. We're going to ask for an extension for completion in September of 2023. As you all know, city didn't really help, but there was a lot of back and forth on design. We lost time. And so we want to try to get that extension. No guarantees, but that's the hope.
What? Yeah, like what do you think would be the components that would need that?
So Chris's main part is the grass, even if so the original plan was to seed September, but a frozen days in March would create some challenges there. So now he wants to seed in May, but would like to have another year to continue to maybe do any adjustments to that seeding if necessary.
But I mean, technically it would be completed by September 2022. I mean, the last thing, it would just maybe be reseeded, right?
I think it would be able to use the funds, allow the funds to extend, because then if we reseed, we'd have to do it out of our own funds. Whereas if we could make those kind of judgment calls and extend the grant.
Or can you not just buy all the supplies that you would need in September?
Potentially. Do you have concerns about asking for an extension?
I guess a bit, just because we've already got like a couple.
From the,
I mean, the
so
worst
I haven't asked for an extension yet.
Yeah, the worst they can say is no, they're not gonna do anything else.
I mean, I don't have, I guess I just feel like we could ask for an extension and then aim for original completion of September 2022. Or I could not. I know Chris is hoping we would, just to have that wiggle room. Because right now we did lose quite a bit of time this year. And so who knows what his staffing will look like next year, that he was kind of feeling like, again, there is no harm. A worst case scenario, they say no.
Yeah, there's no harm, I think, on their side. I think, at least what I'm not going to put any words in Jess's mouth here, but what I'm sort of feeling is that an extension could also then result in other aspects of the project being delayed because there's an extension.
Or would it
flexibility?
Would it look bad? I just like to. Would it look bad for future grant applications? They'd be like, "Oh, these are the ones that kept asking for like indefinite extensions on their grant." I don't want us to get labeled as that either for the future.
My last call with Matt didn't sound like that was ever a concern if we were able to. He knows we were delayed because I have to go through and file that paperwork where we were moving funds for irrigation. So he knew that there was that change. What he told me is he knows things happen and he just appreciates upfront transparency versus us coming to them and being like, oh, we spent that money and now telling you we spent it in a different way, or we're telling you a month before the deadline we need more time. And so my thought is to go into it just having that same pretty casual conversation like I did irrigation, to test the waters and see how he feels. And kind of go from there. But that was the vibe I got, is that he understood things happen. And I hear what you're saying, I guess, maybe in kind of support or comment from Public Works. I think with the time that they've done a ton of work. And that's even starting only about a month, about 6 weeks ago, hitting the ground running hard. And so I think, I do think they've demonstrated that they can keep that momentum going, but we only get 3 to 4 months a year to work on this. And so that's kind of his thought of the extension was not like we can tackle this all year long.
It doesn't seem to me that extension would harm future grant applications, only grant applications that we made while we were still working on this one. Like that could potentially be an issue, right? So the faster we get this done, the faster we can apply to GoCo again. If we don't plan on applying to GoCo until 2023 anyway, then it's really not that big a deal.
More than anything, I wanted to update him because really the last time I talked to him too, was the time we hadn't heard from Jason, so we weren't really sure what was going to happen there. So I would just like to just update him. And so I have no intention of submitting the request and just not having that conversation first. So, of course, I'll take my guidance from you, but from you all, I just feel like there's no harm. And he may just say like, hey, it's really not going to work. Here's why.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, especially if we can give them this or this option.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, ultimately he said, we want to see the project done. So
Right.
showing them
Yeah.
too what's been done thus far. I think that's also what we need to demonstrate is we didn't just like throw away this year. You know, here's what we were able to accomplish. He is aware of how challenging it's been with Boulder. You know, that's yet another piece of we have that whole, you know, all of this adds all these parts of Boulder that we're not even doing this like northern part because of the complications, and they made it very clear we weren't basically to touch any of their land until that IGA is in place. And who knows how long that'll take.
Sounds reasonable. But yeah, we're hopefully going to get back to our Wednesday morning meeting soon here. So if anyone from ProSAP wants to hop on to the GoCo planning meetings, we're going to hopefully be back to holding those Wednesday, 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, can I move that? Is that good?
Yeah.
That works. Okay, cool.
Yep.
And then the other thing is I did send, you know, it's funny, Jason like loved the image you sent, Jesse, but didn't answer my question. And so I guess I'm going to kind of pose it to you all. Of course, we'll need Jason's weigh in, but Chris has kind of prepared the art installation area. He just wants to know, do we leave it dirt or do we put down pea gravel? My feeling is that's the artist's decision, but do you all have any thoughts on that?
I feel like that would be best to get him to weigh in on that, whether he needs to put the wood down and then put the gravel down or what order.
Do you want to give a Jason update? I don't, did we?
Yes, that was going to be kind of the next thing. It's going to be a Jason fan update. So kind of that's been probably the biggest thing on my agenda this last month is to work with the artist, Jason, who he's been working in Bennett and in Brighton, Colorado for the last for most of August. He's been Bennett, Colorado, which is kind of out near DIA, and Brighton. So he's been putting in a couple of pieces down at the Anythink libraries down there. So if you're in the area, go check out the libraries in Bennett and in Brighton. And you can check out a couple of his recent pieces. I took some photos of those pieces and I will share them with you. And we'll write that down to do that. They're super cool and they're very different to kind of some of the stuff he's done before. He works with local native kind of salvaged wood for the most part. That's the goal. And then last week, was it last week? Man, yeah. Last week.
I know.
So, long time ago, he came up to Nederland for a site visit. I think it was like Tuesday, Wednesday. So Miranda and myself met him down at the site, and he kind of scoped out the area and got a feel for it. And then the next day he met with Miranda and Public Works and Chris and Nikki, and then he scoped out, they took him to see the available materials up at Public Works site and at the forestry sort yard. I got permission from Wild Bear to remove several of the bigger stumps that he might be interested in from their property. I just have to figure out how to transport them from there to the storage. So we've got storage set up at the sort yard, I believe now. This is all.
I have access to a truck and a trailer and can help move stuff. So.
Awesome, thank you. That I'm sure we will.
I was at the short yard fairly recently, anyways, so stuff. So
you're going to be needing a lot of help moving a lot of wood. But basically, at the end of the visit, Jason, he just said he was super inspired by being in Nederland. He'd been down in the flatlands for a long time in the heat. He came up to Nederland. He just felt. He said he felt he really connected to the area and he relaxed a bit, and he went and bought a guitar from Brightwood and he hung out by the creek and he visited the library and some other businesses. And I guess the major thing is that we've collectively agreed to postpone the art installation build as well, as with most things. So it was scheduled to be installed the second week of September. So we're all in agreement that it would be prudent to move it to spring of next year. And that will give us more time to gather the wood and for him to kind of come up with the design. Now he's more familiar with now he knows the area.
And the weather conditions and Mercury being retrograde and all those things.
Time constraints and everything. Is there anything else you can think to add to that, Miranda?
No, I mean, when we were at the sort yard, Wayne kind of walked him through what he could have and was happy to pull aside anything he needed. I think Jason's big thing is not wanting to use any materials that require equipment the more equipment, the higher the cost, and therefore the smaller the design. And so Sam, totally take you up on that, as much as we can
Yeah,
get
sure.
pieces that people can haul and carry and handle themselves. The other piece of that is just the delay allows us more time to recruit volunteers and get people excited. I shared with Jessie some contact information for short-term rentals that she could reach out to for housing. I can't do that because of conflict of interest, but hoping that those few households I share with her would be open to supporting in that sense.
So we can get him
It's
and his
really-
team housed for the week.
Yeah, he was just really, it was nice to actually meet him, and we have, of course, a contract to work out with him still just from our end, but it felt better actually getting to know him and spending time versus the guy we've only talked to a few times on the phone. Really excited to work with him. I think it's going to build us something beautiful. He did mention to me at the store yard, though, his displays likely will have a shelf life of like 5 to 7 years. And so future funding in our mind that we could always bring him back to upgrade it, but we're looking at kind of an average of 5 years lifespan, just because of the weather. Of course, it's an outdoor unit and it's going to take a beating. I just think we should keep it on our radar for future funding. It would be nice to have him come back instead of letting it become like a dilapidated item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that is he's going to be leading workshops. So he'll be leading workshops. He'll be teaching teens and youth classes how to do all this stuff. So hopefully that could maybe even be a component of it, that he can teach us how to, to look after it and maintain and upgrade it too.
Yeah.
I wondered, has anyone asked, does he allow documentation of the process?
Yes, he allows it and wants it and encourages it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good.
he wants to do like a bunch of workshops, and he wants to do a land acknowledgement during that week of installation and do some drumming kind of, because he's a percussionist too. So he wants to do like some percussion workshops and some community building events. He's like super into engaging the community.
I know a drum group, if you could pay them, they'll come up here. The land acknowledgement,
That would be
Lakota
cool.
Drum Group.
Might not be a bad idea either to make it
Yeah,
kind of an event.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think that what's going to be really important for us is that not just that we, apply for grants to get the same guy to come out and fix it up, but that we kind of learn to take care of this thing as a town and use it as kind of a community building exercise. And if we can't maintain that community around that structure over the next 5 years, I would be wary of putting more money into it, right? Like, I think it'd be great to bring him out to give it a little refresh, but if it's totally dilapidated and we haven't done any work on it at all as a community, that would be a real shame.
Yeah.
So I think that would mean that this is not something that Nederland can sustain in the long term.
Yeah.
But hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, I think he would be totally down to kind of, he's really interested in getting youth involved. So as much as we could do some classes about maintaining that and encouraging stewardship, which is the whole point of the grant here. So.
Well, I will plan to arrange some very thorough documentation of the process.
Awesome.
Nice.
And then as far as being involved with helping with transport of things and lending hands and stuff like that, just tell me how to plug in there.
Thank you.
We have plenty of moving stuff. It's like it's not that hard.
It's going to be a super cool project, and like Jason said, he said it's a matter of how many people, how cool it can be. All depends on how many people in the community get involved. Because that really depends on like what comes out of this.
That's the community part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Other than that, I guess my only other update is I'm in touch with the people who are ECOS, the graphic design studio down in Boulder, that are going to be working on the interpretive signage. So they would like a bunch of bullet points that we might want included on the 2 interpretive signs. The first one is kind of historical information. It's going to be the history of Barker Meadows, the history of kind of Hannah Barker and how the name came to be of the reservoir, brief history of Nederland, and then also a brief history of how the Jeff Gershio Memorial Ball Field got its name, and kind of honoring the legacy of the Caribou Music Studios and baseball and that side of things on one sign. And then on the other is going to be water ecology and stewardship. And I guess we're waiting on Boulder to get some of the specific wording that they want included about water quality on that. But if you have any input on kind of specific things that you might like to see included, they have like specified that they want, they keep saying less is more. So if you have any like just cool information though, or
Where are these
photos,
signs going to be, Jesse?
that is the other thing. We're going to have a site visit sometime in September with them to kind of determine the two locations. I think one of them is kind of hoping to be the southwest location, kind of the entrance to the park, like near the driveway of Teensink, where there's like a feature area as you enter the park.
Oh,
So one
okay.
there, and then the other
Yeah.
one I think is still to be determined.
Okay. Maybe along Tungsten Trail where you come off the bridge.
Yeah, maybe somewhere. There's another feature area down by the corner of the wastewater treatment plant, maybe there, or
Mhm.
yeah, maybe at the Tungsten Trail bit where it meets the weir, or yeah, maybe out by the art installation where it's looking out over the reservoir or something. That is
So is drafting the text for this something that ProSab is going to do?
they have a copywriter, so they just want the ideas, kind of the general preliminary ideas. So they want the preliminary ideas by the 30th. We've got a lot of time to work on this. There's going to be a lot of back and forths.
30th of what?
August for just the preliminary ideas.
Will you send
Points.
would you send something out regarding that?
Yeah,
Because I'd like to write something up, but I need to know what the outline needs to be.
Yeah.
Is this sign something that we could also put a QR code on?
I guess so.
I mean, it's not
It
like
just
it's
is.
some kind of laser cut sign that, you know, I'm just wondering because what I was thinking, it would be nice to have like all the music that did come out of there on a Wikipedia list somewhere that people just hit it with the QR code and like, wow, you know.
That's a cool
I
idea.
guess the only thing would be like, would it has to, the website has to stand the test of time. So
Well, but,
in 10
I
years
mean,
time, if the sign is
all the
still standing.
Wikipedia sites, you know, you control them
Yeah.
yourself, so it's.
But that's another thing I should say about the art installation too. Like, so Jason was saying throughout all this art installation, there's the option of bringing in essentially like kind of a laser engraver to engrave on wood pieces that they could put QR codes all over, so you could scan those when you're out there, and that will take you to like a piece of music or like a narrative or like a story, you know, kind of. So ideas for that to get your cogs turning.
Interactive wood, Atashna. I would.
Oh,
That's good.
I do think it would be cool to have something, yeah, that like I've seen signs that have the ability to like slide a piece of 8.5 by 11, paper into like a little plastic thing on the front so that you can have updated information or like new announcements and things like that. I don't know how big these interpretive signs are going to be though. Right now I'm imagining something gigantic, but I guess it's probably
They're pretty big. I think they're like kind of big, and they're the standard ones that you see it. It's the company that does all the ones that's down at Chautauqua and stuff.
Okay.
So they're nice and they're big.
Cool. Yeah, I guess the only thing that I would want to communicate to them is that I don't think we want like a saccharine whitewashing of the history of Nederland on our signs.
Yeah, it has to reflect, the local distinctiveness, the design and everything. And I'm gonna be strict as a graphic designer. I'm not gonna take any not gonna take any rubbish.
All right.
And then I'm sure other components are going to keep coming up because there's just lots of little components like that. We're going to have to keep talking about placement of bike racks and all this kind of thing. But I would encourage you to go down there and take a look because a lot has happened the last few weeks. Definitely go down and take a walk and check out the flower beds in front of the Jeff Gershio Memorial Ballfield sign. It looks really nice. The trails are looking really good. So, yay.
Now, since we're having to delay some things, when spring comes along in June up here, would we be able to have access, like, in the financing to have workers again to do the work that needs to be done?
Yes, we are budgeting to have temporary workers again.
Okay.
Same again.
Yep. Ideally the same three, not the same three people, but the three temporary workers so the way in which temporary workers work is you can have them for 90 days with the option of extending for another month. So there actually is one temp worker Nikki is working with now who may be able to extend, but the other ones cannot.
Okay.
One is because they're going to be the new deputy town clerk. That's why.
Ooh, who is it?
So her name is Macy Caligaris. She's with the Parks team. We're bringing her on as the deputy town clerk with the hope of training her into the town clerk position around 6 months.
What's her
I will
name?
maintain Macy Caligaris. She lives in Old Town. She's been here for a while. Really, really smart, talented, organized. Kind of has all the qualities needed to, I think, to be a successful clerk. Just is pretty new to municipal government. So I will maintain the clerk role for the time being, and then the hope is that we can appoint her to clerk in about 6 months.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to be clerk and town admin.
I am going to be clerk and town admin. But I
We
have
might
a
as well-
deputy.
we might as well just fire the rest of town staff. Just let Miranda do all of it.
We're fine. No, I mean, she'll take on the duty, but statutorily, we need to have a town clerk on file. So on file, I will be your town clerk, but Macy will be
One of those.
conducting the role of town clerk.
One
Hey, so
man band.
Miranda, a
Okay,
big
sorry.
bird also told me that you are going to school full-time for some
Mhm.
kind of a PhD or something?
Yes, I am working on my doctorate in public administration. It's my
So
weekend
when do
side
you
gig.
sleep?
It's a side gig. Yes, I sleep. Yeah, I do that, and that's actually not full time.
Vampire.
That is, but I do go to school on the weekends.
Jeez.
Sound like an amazing individual.
Thanks, Sam.
She
Appreciate it.
is.
I have to keep my camera off because I host, and otherwise I get all glitchy. So I hope to meet you in person, but I usually lose people when I turn it on. So apologies.
All right, I don't see praising Miranda on the agenda, so maybe we should.
Right, it's not on there. Let's move on.
No, but we are going to get you one of those outfits where you got a big drum on your back and a harmonica and then like bells on your toes. And
Yes.
every time you move.
I'm so excited. Well, and I guess
Hurdy-gurdy.
can we just add though that Karen's farewell party, so saying Karen is our current town administrator, her farewell party is on September 2nd. If you didn't RSVP, it's okay. I estimated high, so you're welcome to still come. It's from 3 to 5 on Thursday the 2nd at Chipeta.
Great.
And we'll have snacks, like snack appetizer food.
On that note, is there anything else to talk about the resilient communities? If not, I'll trundle on to the next one. The community, remember, we have a request from the community about may ProSab consider doing something for National Public Lands Day on September 25th. And if anyone would like to spearhead that, I know we've done things like noxious weed pulls and trash pickups just as general events in the past. I, for one, am not going to be in town that day. So, but if anyone
What
has
date
any
is it?
September 25th, that is a Saturday,
The 25th?
I believe. Yeah.
Nope. Committed.
There's a lot going on in town
Yeah.
that day. That
Yeah.
is the
Jesse,
Yeah.
is Jill planning to do something? Because I almost wondered if it makes
It is,
sense to.
that is the day. That's the Enchanted Forest
Oh,
Day.
perfect. Okay.
It's Enchanted Forest Day on the 25th?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That will fit right in with public lands.
So they wanted to write this person wanted to write an article about anything that town was doing. So, and I completely forgot that Enchanted Day was that day. So I'm going to direct her there.
Yes.
And I
I
think
don't know
that's
if this is
yeah.
relevant in this sense. You all can tell me from experience, but one of the things that is years ago now that did when I was on the road with Leave No Trace is would go to towns and different places that requested educators to come and talk about Leave No Trace on public lands, and they can host a workshop or put up a booth. And their headquarters are in Boulder, so I know everybody at the offices there. I could see if they have anybody available. They had been doing far less in-person type of things with COVID, but that could be maybe somebody could come up and just have a booth or something like that to educate on the importance of Leave No Trace on public lands as a
They
tie-in.
should get
That
with
sounds
Jill.
interesting.
They should get with Jill in some way. That sounds like a really good idea to interface with the Enchanted Forest as an educational, entertaining event.
Yeah,
Man,
they
yeah,
do a
that
good job
does.
with things, so I'm happy to coordinate that and reach out. I know everybody over there still quite well, so
yeah,
And
that
it's
would fit.
outside, so
yeah, and it's outside. Yeah,
they just have to dress up as some kind of an animal.
They are
I'm
looking
sure they
for
could do that.
they're looking for like volunteers for like people to dress up as fairies too, or magicians, or they're looking for volunteers to be tour guides or to staff like various booths. So they are looking for volunteers for that day for the Enchanted Forest. If anyone is interested, it's a fun day. I will be out of town
I
celebrating my
actually will be out
husband's.
of town as well, but you
It's the
said
most
celebrating your
beautiful
husband's
weekend
birthday.
of the year up here. It's everyone should be out of town going and looking at the trees.
But I'm happy to help coordinate some of that if that's of interest or seems relevant.
That'd be great, Sam.
Yeah,
Grab
thank
some
you.
people from there and have them come up here, dress as animals and integrate right into the whole event.
And that sounds like the kind of people who we might want to get in for the next year's workshops too, when we're kind of doing
Yeah,
the opening of the park and stuff to do some Leave No Trace workshops. That would
Oh,
fit right
yeah.
in.
and because they're so close, they can do things a little bit less scheduled versus sending teams around the country where it's got to be scheduled. So yeah, I'm happy to reach out and see if anybody is available for that initially, and then I'm sure I would be really surprised if something couldn't be coordinated for future, because that's really what they're doing.
That'd be wonderful.
So that is kind of all the updates on resilient communities. That is ongoing, and I will keep sending you updates and pictures because there's a lot going on with that. But yeah, definitely do go check it out because it's really awesome. It's very exciting, and they're doing a great job. So kind of the last item we really have is Pocket Parks, Bike Park, and an update on town assets and land. I know Atashna, kind of you gave that awesome edits to the assets list. They were all looked really good.
Thanks.
Really kind of just straightforward. Important clarifications there. I just got a message from High Performance Earthworks today, actually. He's like kicking off, he's like finding a bit more time to open up the discussions about the bike park thing again. So hopefully we're going to be in touch with him over the next couple of weeks and just get some updates and see how they're still feeling about the offer of building a bike park somewhere. And then
I'm still I haven't had much time lately because I haven't been well. But I got all the agendas and meetings from Peter for the past, I think, 2 years. And I'm going through them to try to find various minutes to lead me to the discussions we had about the bike park.
Okay.
As soon as I get those all together, I'll let you know. because those should be a packet of information to forward to the subcommittee, the bike park subcommittee. And on that, once we get that formed. And on that note, I had made changes to the advertisement or the notice that I had put together. I made the changes that were suggested. I sent them out, but they haven't been published anywhere.
That's probably that's probably for the best. Like let's wait until
Yes.
we hear from the rest of this stuff. So it's okay to move slow on this. Like we're just doing what we can.
But I
Does
just
someone
want
wanna
I just want to
connect
know that the notice is still, it's still maybe in the minutes and people still have the email. Because I think it would be best, I mean, we're heading into the fall and then winter, so nothing can be done anyhow. But it would be good to have all that packet of information ready to go in the springtime so that we can move forward with it.
Do you have updates on the identifying the town lands, Miranda?
No, not really. It's kind of gotten pushed off a bit. Yeah, so no.
Okay. I have two potential spots, but they're both, I think both of them are private land. But they would seem appropriate.
I mean, your biggest space is going to be like we're currently, so a part of my reason for no is I'm really deep in the Wingate property and getting that all squared away, which I think, that's a huge parcel of land. And so that is.
I thought we can't do anything with that.
You can,
because you put it into some sort of perpetuity arrangement.
It's just donated to town.
No, it's donated. Yeah, we're just finalizing those agreements. It's just, so a long story short, it was subdivided inappropriately, and so it needs to go back through the Board of Trustees and Planning Commission for an official subdivision. But then that becomes town property, and so that's really from a land standpoint and potentially what you're looking at. That's a lot of property that we need to consider, but there's the mitigation side of it, which we've been in touch with the fire department about, and see if they can get a grant or we can get a grant to do that. I think that's really your best option, though.
Yeah, I mean, it could be kind of an amazing woodland park and recreation area that is also an example of proper fire mitigation.
Yeah,
agreed. I mean, just how much we're getting of that area. We're getting 3 of the parcels, and so I did the math.
I was just under the impression that there was some kind of codicil on it that we couldn't do certain things on it. It had to remain wild.
No, we can develop it, and so I think it's about what we're gaining is, let's see, I was just going to do the quick math, is almost 10 acres.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so I think that's the way to go. We just have to finalize the paperwork so that it's a clean gift to town.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I guess just bringing that up, is there anything that ProSab needs to do, because Rick is not here today too? Are we going to have representatives from the fire department? I know they're having some changes of staff. Both Ricks are leaving, I guess.
So Rick Henriksen is now back on. He's at 30 hours a week. And will remain that way kind of until further notice. And so when I talked to Ian last, he said anything related to town, Rick Henriksen is still our point of contact. And then if he can't, Ryan, and I don't remember his last name, or not Ryan, Kyle, who's their new shift supervisor, he would step in if ever Rick couldn't. But I believe tonight they had a meeting to talk structure, and that's why Rick couldn't be here.
They're reorganizing, aren't they?
They're reorganizing. They're making some adjustments.
So for the next meeting too, we've already got 3 items added to next month's meeting, but I think it would be pertinent for us to add a discussion of the Big Springs egress. I think we need to kind of start talking a little bit more in depth about the kind of the subcommittee findings and whatever progress is being made on town side.
So Eric, the desire of Eric and Tanya is to bring this forward on the September 7th meeting. Am I safe to assume that is still the
Okay.
interest, and then ProSab will be a supplemental conversation from that.
Yeah, I would love to hear from the subcommittee as soon as possible at the BOT level,
Okay.
because I think it's worth, as a discussion item, I think is what we're thinking, Miranda, because it does seem, yeah, we're still in that position where there is an approved route that nobody actually approves of. And,
No, it's very.
you know, and
Is-
that it feels wrong, and it feels like we
does.
should have a conversation about that, and that conversation should involve ideally some kind of report from the egress subcommittee. I mean, that's something that I wanted to talk to Tanya about, but she wrote that email to you beforehand. So, I mean, I think doing it September 7th is totally fine. I don't think that there's any reason to wait any longer on it. But
Okay.
as long as we can actually get the full picture from everybody who's involved.
Eric? Who is, yeah, like you said, it's something that, the approved route is something that nobody approves of. So
Yeah.
who is actually pushing this?
Nobody really. I mean, it was approved by the previous BOT, right?
And the
And now we have a new BOT, and we have new information from the fire experts, and a better plan, I think, for moving forward than what was presented to the BOT last time around, right? I wasn't there, so I think that it would be really beneficial for us to get the ball rolling on approving a new route, and making that the primary route officially.
Because we've
rather
had the
than-
subcommittee has had holdups with whatever's going on at the fire department. We've had no response from them for the last few
Oh,
weeks.
okay.
And
Okay.
so, but there's the minutes from like the last meeting that we made that we should definitely, I guess, send over as a report to the BOT.
Well,
Okay,
and I
so
did
once the
send
fire
an
department
email.
settles down, then we can move forward
I think we just
aggressively
need
with
to,
it.
it's because it needs to be brought up.
Okay.
So I did
ASAP.
send the fire department Tanya's email requesting that this be added. I copied them on so they are aware that that was a desire. I guess it's just kind of some clarification too. So when this all got sent to Joe Nagus's team, we had to pick information, submit a route that had the most documentation, had the engineer drawings, had all the pieces. But in the letter, we did indicate that this is not likely the route that we will land on. And so I think that's caused a lot of confusion. And I agree with Eric. It would be great just to get ahead of that and help.
Yeah, the
understand
ambiguity is really worrying.
Yeah, that we needed to submit something and we didn't have time to do all the work that needed to go into the route.
The mayor didn't want us to go ahead and try and unapprove the one that had been approved before any further grants were accepted. But I feel like the time now is that we have to move forward on unapproving the priorly approved route.
So I will tell you, he still does feel that way because currently the funding through Nagus and the from his appropriations is not finalized. And what his fear is that we're going to make it look like this is not a worthy project to fund because there's so much turmoil, and not saying that that's the right answer or the wrong answer. I just think that's his concern, is they'll get wind of this and be like, well, why on earth would we even fund it? You guys don't even know what you're doing.
The frustrations on behalf of the egress subcommittee is that he hasn't communicated any of this with the people on the committee.
Sure,
so there's just like a breakdown of communication.
Chris hasn't communicated this to
No, he hasn't. He hasn't responded. He hasn't joined any of the meetings that we've had or responded to any of the emails that we've sent, which is just really frustrating for a subcommittee that is dealing with. He's supposed to be.
But so we really have no. To me, there's no downside in approving a new route.
Approve a new route, right?
Right. I can see where there might be optically some issues with disapproving of the route that we submitted, right? But to amend the route that was approved before to the new preferred route should be something that we should get done. And the only thing that I think that's stopping us from doing that is understanding of what's going on with the various kind of private property concerns and what the what the new route actually is going to be, so that we can approve it
Yeah, and
appropriately.
I'm happy to give that update. So we recently met with our town attorney, and the route in those private properties, actually, we've identified goes straight through a property owner. It abuts to a property owner that is in support of the route. And so the one who is not, while of course we care for our neighbors and we want to do the right thing with our neighbors, he actually has no say. And so
Okay.
his way, but it is a little bit of that our negotiations are limited. Now, Mayor Larson's intention was still to reach out and kind of follow up with what Rick Durr did, and it's on our weekly meetings to talk about. But that's the great news, is that downfalls, it might piss somebody off in the end, but we don't need his permission to do what that proposed route is.
Well, we also can't allow one person to subvert the whole
Safety of the
project.
neighborhood.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that without kind of really looking into it, when we dug deep into property records and site plans and surveys, we determined that it does not impact.
Okay.
So on the 7th, then is this an agenda item or is this during the public comment?
It's an agenda item, and it'll stay as such. I mean, 2 trustees can bring something forward with or without mayor approval. I know Mayor Larson, if the intention is to just approve a new route and not disapprove another route, I think will be support, but it'll be a discussion item, John,
Okay.
on that meeting.
So,
Yeah,
so
I don't want to take any action on that day, but I do think that
Be a
too much of
discussion.
this conversation is happening offline, and it needs to
it needs to
happen
be
out in the
a
open.
public. Yeah, that's what
so
my
the
feelings are.
action would probably be something like go forth and bring us an updated.
Right, precisely. To
That's what
direct
we
town
want.
staff to bring us an updated route that we can amend the previous route.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that is what I would hope the result of the discussion is. Who knows? I don't know
Okay.
what the result will be.
So the useful support would be residents or anyone, ProSAP members, come in and comment in their support for approving a new route.
My only question is, how do you do that? I mean, because usually they have the public comment is before they talk about anything. Are they going to then
No,
open it
there will
up?
be, there's public comment available for each discussion item.
Okay.
So yeah, right before it's right after. Is it right after you finish discussing it? There's public comment.
Yeah, so the aim will be brought up, it'll be presented, the board will discuss it briefly, and then public comment about that item will happen, and then we'll discuss it again.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Oh, one other thing, since you guys were talking about that bike track, I don't know if this is correct, but I was only in town. I work at the hangar there for like 12 hours. But when I pulled away down in Boulder, it looked like they built the exact track that we're talking about down at the Velo Park in Boulder. They're just like finishing touches on it. So
Is that the Valmont one?
yeah, the Valmont Bike
Yeah,
Park. It looks like in the
GoCo,
backside
they got
building.
GoCo funding to improve to make more bike track at that one. It was
Yeah,
part of
and
the
it
same.
sounds like it's the exact thing that they're talking about. So if we need, to talk to people about the tensile of the cement or whatever it is, I mean, they're doing it down there, I think.
And really quick, while we're on that, you all probably have seen, I mean, Tanya is really interested in getting involved. And so I know that the committee hasn't been formed, but if someone, and maybe that's Atashna, I don't know who, wants to reach out to her, I think that would be great, because she's been talking about it for a while, wanting to be connected with someone.
Great. Hopefully that'll be a good winter project for us to kind of work on getting
Yeah,
the bike park
winter
subcommittee
project.
together and get some
Mhm.
teams. And now that schools are back in session, we can start maybe getting in touch with the high schools and start that media outreach. So I'll let you know whatever Jesse gets back to me with. I know he's like reckoning with it. He'll still need a formal. We'll probably come to Miranda for advice about a formal offer of work and donation of services.
Okay.
Jesse,
Yes.
he's aware that we are no longer considering the land up on Ridge Road, correct?
I have no idea. I guess I don't think I don't think he has any expectations. He's
Okay,
just
good.
walking into it open.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is about it, unless there's any maybe updates on the Trails master plan. I was just kind of going to shelve that until next time too. I know Brian's not here, and it's ongoing.
I did send to Eric and Brian the most recent spreadsheet with 10 new responses, which I think is cool from the last time you met. And I know Peter did a few more pushes for that. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And I think those 10 more responses were actually more helpful than some of the previous ones. But yeah, Brian and I did meet. Now what is it, 2 weeks ago? I can't time has become a blur for me, but it was the day before we got a foster placement. So that sort of left my mind for the last few weeks, and I have not done my side of the bargain. We had divvied up a couple of tasks to do. So I'm sure that when we meet again, Brian and I will connect and have our tasks done and be able to report something more coherent.
Okay. Great. Well, I'll try and get these minutes out as soon as I can to you all. Like my summer is calming down a bit. That was a crazy 10 weeks I just had there, so I should have more time to dedicate to ProSap again. Thank you, everyone. Amazing. You're doing great.
Thank you for inviting me and let me be involved here.
We expect you to be back.
Yes,
I would like to be.
Expect that
I'd like to be.
application to come in. We have never had a plethora of of applications, so I shouldn't expect competition to be too stiff.
Well, I'll certainly submit one, and I look forward to being involved in the community in this way, hopefully. So
Great, we appreciate it.
Yeah, very much so. I appreciate you all and all the work you do. So thank you.
Well,
Anything
we
else?
appreciate you more, Jesse. Now
Oh.
adjourn this meeting.
Let's adjourn this meeting. I motion to adjourn. 9:39.
I second that.
All right, let's do it. 9:39. Have a
Done.
good night.
Good night, all.
Thanks, Miranda. Bye.
thank you. Bye.